If you have the Thomas, you have best aim. If you have Tayson, you'll be smart. Venom's the best fighter. At one point, I was the smartest player in the world.
Pink and a Nas, they've done it.
I have a big ego in terms of things like this, and I'm very confident in myself. Nah, the character Pink is literally just me. On stream, everything, I'm myself. I don't like building a false personality, it's just me. I've been playing since literally season 0, and there was always challenges for me. First challenge was being the best in my year, and then after that was being the best in my school. And then we also used to have everyone from different schools come play me, and I would just beat all of them. After that, the World Cup came about. Of course, everyone was like, yeah, you could go to New York, you could change your life. I thought I was literally gonna qualify because my ego was through the roof. I literally just earned $200 in all 10 weeks because I didn't know how to play the game. And I put my head down and I started learning, and I just built up and built up. Ego is very dangerous. It could be good though as well, but you gotta have balance. I used to go outside all day, every day. I used to play football outside with my friends. And then at the time, in London, there was a lot of danger happening. My mum was just worried. She just wanted to protect me. She told me I can't go outside as much. She thought something would have happened to me. So then I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna stay at home and just play games. And then luckily Fortnite came about and I could just put my all into that. Like, if you ask why is Pink good, it won't be like, oh, he's good at this, he's good at that. I just think I'm very well-rounded and I can do everything at a good level. I can IGL, I can follow just as easily. I can play zero build, I can play build. I can fit in a team really well. I can fight well, if a new meta comes out, I can adapt really quickly. I went through a big dip in my career where I was considering quitting. I just wasn't winning anything, and it was like I'm doing so much and I'm trying my best. In Major 2, we didn't qualify for the Grands, which just isn't good enough, so I knew change needed to happen. In 2023, I've been struggling to find a duo that I'm fit with and I want to stay with, so I've been changing around a lot, and that causes a lot of mistakes. This season, I've found motivation, I've found my old self back, and I'm finding every little mistake.
Whenever you're a newly formed duo, you're really starting to feel that pressure. Pink and Vico, they're doing their best to stay in this one.
If I do make it, it'll be a chance to prove myself for the failure of last season. Inshallah, I come first in Copenhagen.
is the Global Championship.
The best players in the world all battling it out.
Insane matches already today.
These are the moments that make these players championship material.
One chance to make it happen, and they take it by force.
It is going to be absolutely insane.
The EU FNCS is back in gear, and tonight we'll be diving right into week number 2 of the Major 3 qualifiers. Let's jump right in. A team that we didn't see in last week's finals was Janice and Reason. They've now climbed back up the ranks and will compete to secure themselves crucial series points in the race for the 50 grand final spots. More importantly though, this is a team that are yet to secure their global championship spot, so every placement counts tonight. The Danish duo of Trippen and Refsgaard are in a very similar boat, as they didn't make it to the finals in week 1 either and are still fighting for that global championship spot. This duo found each other this season, and now it's time to prove that it works amongst the best of the best players. Do they have what it takes? We've seen Cammy and Seti a lot this season in the leaderboards already, and they're off to a hot start. They've got to keep this momentum going though as they drop out of the battle bus tonight if they want to win week 2 and secure their spot for the grand finals this season. If anyone can make it happen though, it's gonna be these two. Get comfortable as we're about to load up the battle bus for tonight's 6 games. There is no time to waste. This is not just a game. This is the EU FNCS.
What's going on, Fortnite fam? Welcome back to the FNCS. That's right, Major number 3 is here, and this is week number 2, which means after next week, we're going right to grand finals, and they'll have one final chance, the last chance major, the 4 global championships. There's still seats on the bus that we need to fill, so let's get into all of that. And of course, really quickly, wanted to highlight Legends Landing. If you like watching the FNCS, you like playing Fortnite at the same time, stop on by. You'll see the code for you right there. There's 1v1, 2v2 box fights, build fights, the Hall of Legends. There's also a display for the Axe of Champions. You can go there, see it in person, and of course, walk down the Hall of Legends. So again, you want to watch Fortnite, you want to play a little bit of Fortnite, hop into Legends Landing. Now, of course, I do have some incredible analysts. We're going to help give insight today because this being week number 2, there is many things to discuss. It is none other than the best Hako and Vivid. Some of your favorites. Friends, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much, Zeke. And listen, you mentioned it, week 2 of the FNCS here, and this is where things start to get heated, right? That series point leaderboard is starting to shape up. You got to make sure you get as many points as possible this week.
Yeah, I mean, we're right at the halfway point after all. And here in week 2 finals, this is where you'd really expect some of those duos that are repeat duos from week number 1 to really try and amp things up because they want to solidify before they have to worry about week 3. And we've only got 19 of those duos actually returning from week 1 here today.
Man, so many more points need to get put on that series point leaderboard. Also, actually, now that I just thought about it, there's one more thing. I don't know if you guys saw that tweet that our Twitter put out, but there's apparently something coming. An unknown future rolls toward us now. Listen, if this is who I think it is, This is probably going to help my aim out quite a bit. What do you guys think?
I mean, your aim does need a lot of help. I'm not sure if anything can go ahead and help that, but yeah, exciting things. And like you mentioned, that silhouette, it does look a little familiar.
Yeah, it's an unknown future, but we'll hope for the best for your aim in particular, Zeke.
Well, you know what? Maybe the future holds some mechanized mayhem. We'll find out pretty soon. But now let's focus in on the competition today. There is a couple things that we wanted to break down for you guys all at home. We got to start with drop spots, right? We've seen some shakeups happen. We've seen a lot of places be highly contested. And what we want to start with is that castle split. Now, this is right between Secluded Spire and, of course, that slap and go area. Can you guys break this down for us?
Yeah, we saw a lot of it even in week number 1, how heavily contested this spot was for Queasy and Veno. I mean, at one point, Veno, Queasy even name-changing to try and become the kings of the castle, but of course they were contested by Shakos and Skydune, so neither side really getting their, I guess, favorite ideal because they had to spend so much time worrying about just eliminating each other. And granted, we did say Shakos and Skydune get the better end of that for the most part. So the vault here in particular is one of the primary reasons I think that this spot is so contested. I mean, that's a free 3 objective points on top of the fact that there is ample resources surrounding this location. But the attraction as well is bound to pull in third-party opportunities, and that was something that we definitely saw becoming an issue for these duos in last week. But here today should be an interesting storyline because it's actually going to be they're laughing and show them looking to take over King of the Castle.
Yeah, 100%. And neither of the teams, like you just mentioned, that were contesting each other in week number 1, neither of those teams are actually going to be in the finals this week. So big switch-ups in that storyline as well. And, you know, the big question was, why are our previous FNCS winners, Queasy and Veno, switching their drop spots where they won an FNCS and switching over to this one at the Castle Split? Like Taco mentioned, that vault, it's going to be a big priority for a lot of teams this season.
Yeah, last week we saw those points, right? The mid-match objective points be actual crucial to winning some of these high-end spots, right, for these series points, but we'll have to see how things continue to develop. I do want to head southwest, down to Frenzy Fields, okay? Seti and Cammy, they've actually had a particularly dominant performance this week. What did we see coming from this duo?
Well, one thing that Seti and Cammy have always been known for is just their consistency as far as placements is concerned. And even in week 1, coming from this Frenzy Fields drop spot, we saw Seti and Cammy 5 out of 6 of their games for the week 1 finals. They had top 10 placements. So they're clearly capable of just breaking down the entirety of Frenzy Fields. They're doing excellent in terms of collecting materials. The only thing that's maybe a little bit lackluster coming out of this POI is going to be the metal, but Cammy and Seti have such a great understanding of where all the hollow chests in particular are located at. I mean, oftentimes we see them even rotating down to Rowdy Acres, over to Meadow Mansion, really fully utilizing as much of the terrain as possible, getting those hollow chests, and even taking opportunities depending where the zones are pooling to essentially focus on their prioritization for positioning.
And when you talk about prioritization, I mean, the thing that Sammy,
I got him.
Seti and Cammy are so good at is those storm surge strategies, right? You can't break into the top 10 every single game if you're not getting through those early game thresholds, and it just seems like every single game they're just a plethora, above 1,000 even sometimes. So I'm excited to see, you know, what they can do today. It's going to be a similar situation for them over at Frenzy Field.
Yeah, and Vivid, if you let me mix up the words, okay, that's my thing. My brain does that, okay? Don't copy me.
Sorry.
We also did get a little sneak peek of the new weapon to the loot pool, the Mammoth Pistol, and how devastating that can also be. Of course, we'll talk about a couple more things, but I actually wanted to take a step back because we have an interview lined up with Pablo Wingo, who's actually going to be someone contesting this castle split. So first off, Pablo, it is great to see you, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling fresh.
That's what's up, man. So, all right, talk to me about the plan today. Coming into week number 2, what are you guys trying to accomplish? You just trying to take over this split? Are you trying to just play it safe? What's your game plan?
We're trying to claim the split because a lot of the players that landed there is not qualified. So we're trying to claim it and get as much series points as possible.
I'm going to keep things a little simpler here. Pablo, what are they laughing at?
They're laughing at our previous Grands placements.
Okay.
Oh, God. So, yeah, I mean, you're actually making a similar switch up to the same one that Cuisine Venom did from Kenjutsu. You're moving over to the Castle Split. What is so bad about Kenjutsu this season where, you know, a lot of these top teams are actually not favoring that POI at all?
I think the positioning is just not good. I've not landed there myself, so I don't really know. But I think it's just lost its OP factor, and it's hard to get search from. So, yeah.
Okay, so then counterpoint, why do you guys feel like Castle Split maybe is that spot? Why, you know, of all the other POIs on the map, why here?
It's got the vaults, the mythic flapjacks, slurps, so you don't need to go for cash, and overall great positioning on the map. So easy search and a lot of sneak up potential. So overall, just a great spot.
I love it. Duh, that's awesome. Well, Pablo, thank you so much for your time and stopping by. Where can the fans at home find you?
They can find me on Twitter. Pablo Wingo.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, Pablo, hey, best of luck in today's competition, and we can't wait to see how things go at Castle Split.
Thank you so much.
Pablo will be competing today, and don't worry, we'll have eyes on Castle Split because it's going to go down. Now, of course, we kind of talked about this a lot last week, but we want to reiterate the fact that this is no mobility meta, which is kind of uncommon, right? Normally, we're used to seeing an item or two helping with rotations around the map, but without that mobility, zone awareness has to just be key and mad critical coming into week number 2. I mean, you know, Vivid, stuff like rotations, they have to be so precise if a duo wants to succeed.
Yeah, we talk about the meta all the time, so I wanted to go ahead and highlight what kind of happened in week number 1 with some of the zones that we saw. So first and foremost, we're going to take a look at one of the early zones that actually happened in game number 1. Of course, here, zone number 1 is going to be closing in here. And as you can see, when it actually does close in, the north and the west side of the map is not going to be in the storm. So all of those teams are going to have to make their rotations in. However, as you can see on these red lines right here, there are already teams kind of posted up in their storm surge bases, kind of waiting for those rotations to come in, because those players are very well aware of the fact that, hey, listen, that's where a majority of these players are going to come in from. If we go ahead and jump 3 minutes ahead from this position right now, we'll actually see full effect of what those little roadblocks actually ended up doing. And if you take a look, nobody really made it past those red lines or those storm surge bases, and that's going to be attributing to the meta, right? There's no item in the game that can kind of create distance between you and another player, so all these rotations have to happen on foot, and once you run into one of those storm surge bases, you're kind of just stuck there. Now, as a result of those roadblocks as well, it's kind of hard to make it to the center of the map, so we're also going to see kind of like the effect of that happen, because anybody that lands in the center of wherever the storm ends up, they're going to have to make rotations actually out, right? Because they have to go get their own storm surge, and we're kind of left with a very interesting situation where there's basically nobody towards the center of the map, and you just have a bunch of congestion towards the north and the west side, because that is kind of where the zone ended up pulling from. And that's just to kind of talk about the effect of where you kind of land on the drop spot, right? You have to prepare these sort of rotations. You have to be ready to make rotations out of your POI, out of the center of the map, which is usually a very good position to go actually get those storm surge tags in. And then also, if you're used to making those long rotations, you got to be very, very prepared for those congested side rotations and be ready to spend the rest of the game alongside all these other duos.
And that's probably one of the most difficult parts, right? Because especially when you're trying to tarp through where those players are already positioned in terms of them having a little bit of that sky-based establishment for height. Sure, they might be able to look for tags, but they're also expending a decent amount of materials as well. And we have been seeing a lot of teams essentially struggling to try and establish height in the first place. We haven't really seen too many height retakes in general. So I think one thing to keep an eye out here in week 2 is in a finals lobby, we know how difficult it is to get storm surge damage in general, but whether or not those teams are actually going to be able to maintain height throughout the course of those later zones.
That's, I think, right, my big call out would be is high ground. It's last week, whoever had high ground basically went on to win the game. Could we expect more of that happening here in EU, or do you guys feel like, hey, that's it, we've had enough of height, we're going to try and bring that back down? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to go ahead and actually face those high ground, right? There is no mobility item, so just naturally the material counts are going to be a little bit lower, which means that you don't necessarily have as many builds to actually go up and contest height. But maybe we'll see some cool like low ground looking up towards high ground and getting a quick headshot in with a mammoth pistol this week.
Yeah, and height in general, I think, looks very different, especially in EU, whenever Queasy and Veno aren't in the late game. Considering that they're not qualified here today in Week 2 finals, I'd have to expect that height's pretty much up for grabs.
All right, well, that's pretty wild because, yeah, I like that you kind of brought this up, Vivid, again, the mammoth pistol. I just thought about, like, the implications of someone on height having that mammoth pistol, just raining down headshots from above. This could be absolutely ridiculous in some of the games we're going to see. And I feel like as well, with the pressure mounting, many of these duos, they're either going to crack or they are just going to flourish, right?
Yeah, you gotta be ready to adapt to the strong weapon, and we'll see if they do that.
Oh, guess what? It's that time. Casters, over to you.
This is it. This is it right now, Levin. The moment we've all been waiting for. Game number 1, week 2 of the EU FNCS finals. And I know players, people at home, they're excited to watch everybody compete, but I'm excited for that mammoth pistol.
I'm super excited, right? I think when you look at last week's competition, Jacob, it was a bit of an opportunity for players to get a feel for things, right? Players still trying to figure out how this season looks. A lot of players been used to playing zero build, right? For a lot of the previous competitions, almost all of the season. So establishing and getting their strategies worked in. And a lot of the big names were really feeling the struggle in that sense. And so coming into week 2, I want to see people fix up a bit, right? Sort of establish yourself. You've had a week now to prepare, to practice, to figure out what went wrong. And now it's about establishing that heading into week number 2. I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I like how a lot of the teams here in this lobby today are really taking advantage of Queasy and Veno not being there. You see the switch up to Pablo and Goo. And the main reason why I'm kind of mentioning it is they're known as the main team, Queasy and Veno, to go for high ground game after game. They plan it, they blueprint it, and they execute. Now it's open for the taking, and we get to see who in game number 1 is going to be daring enough to take high ground, because it starts right now.
We have 6 games of competition coming up for you now. And after it, we will be one step closer to the all-important grand finals of FNCS Major 3. And of course, along that journey, following the teams who have qualified for the Global Champions and players who quite yet have not qualified for the Global Championship.
Ooh.
What do we have here off spawn?
Did not expect this one from the racetrack to be contested, but that's no stranger for Malibuca and Thomas. They're immediately getting things rolling. The first knock is going to be secured, and they already have their second player locked in their line of sights. And honestly, it just looks like they can do exactly what they want. They have very, very little HP on the other side. You see them trying to think outside of the box, blow up the canister of gas, and there goes the final blow and the first mammoth pistol from Thomas HD. And that's the thing I'm scared of right now. We've seen Thomas HD with various differentiations of the sniper, but that mammoth is going to be scary.
Yeah, they're going right into even more action here at Kinjitsu Crossing. Obviously, a lot of players realizing, wait, Queasy and Veno are landing here. This is a free POI for us to land at. Many different players, many different teams trying to take advantage right now.
Exactly what you got to do. Like I said, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And you can see it's a very, very slow start over here towards Kinjitsu Crossing. And you can kind of see it. New teams toward Kinjitsu, they might not necessarily know how to go right out of the gates, get the most advantageous loot, and then fight it like some of our more experienced players over to this side of the map. And that's going to make it to where they're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort looting up, getting resources, and that's before they even really fight each other. So if they choose to disengage, they're going to have to make that decision quickly. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of time being wasted.
Yeah, definitely expect to see some sort of engagement kickoff here soon, with Griff obviously getting a claim here on the capture point. But ultimately, this isn't a fight you often want to drag out too long. There's such a large area to loot. You want to be able to spread your wings a bit and fly, especially when looking for early game surge. See how that develops. That's on Slove though, in the midst of a fight here at the Creaky compound. And it's not a fight they're looking too good in. Slove's gone down. Ass is doing his best to stay in it.
seeing the effects of that new lever shotgun, or see the returned lever shotgun. You're able to output damage so quickly in a fight. Being able to edit in and out of those pieces and pop some shots is going to be key. Bass looks like he's getting chased down right now, trying to think outside of the box, using the zip line, going back down for the slurp plant as well, but unfortunately they were just hot on the chase. They take him down and add some early points to their totals, but another contested fight that I didn't necessarily expect.
Yeah, what's happening here? Seti and Cammy. You have to expect players to almost respect these established teams who are landing at these spots, but apparently here in game number 1 that's not the case, but all those teams being punished for it, right? Seti and Cammy will pick up both the elims there and go about their business, but that's interesting. Is that going to keep happening? Is going to be something to watch out for, because if it is, that could be a problem for them.
Yeah, and honestly, it's one of those situations where Seti and Cammy, they play any play style, even though they favor the placid one. But towards Kenjutsu Crossing, we saw it start. Now we're going to see it finish. Griff and Turbulence, they were the ones who left the actual building of Kenjutsu. They started to capture it, and they finished it overall in the feed. I already saw Vidil and Savage pick up a couple eliminations, and now they're looking for more. They don't want to let this player escape. They're going to continue to fire off the buildings, get them to waste resources until they finally pick up that elimination. And there goes another wipe of a squad, or at least half.
Yeah, not too shabby. The deal with Mr. Savage off to a decent start. The deal showed a lot last week with one of the best solo clutches we've seen in a long time. We'll see if he can match those levels again this time round.
Roban just getting picked up by Aspect. Honestly, if I was choosing players, Roban would probably be at the top of one of my lists for several reasons. He's getting more entertaining to watch week after week and proving to be a dominant force here in FNCS Major 3, at least based off of last week's performance. And now we got Kylie and Fast Roki with one team going down over here towards Kenjutsu Crossing. They heard all that action going down, and there was that second elimination. I said half of the team, there goes the other one. They found it, and for them, they're just trying to scrape together all the loot that they can from their drop spot and somebody else's. They're trying to set themselves up for a good mid to late game. Without mobility, you have to be able to plan 2, maybe even 3, 4 steps ahead.
Yeah, you want to get ahead on the surge and, you know, sort of pick good positions to make those first rotates sort of easy. I think even with no mobility, those first couple zones are still quite similar to rotate through, and a lot of the ideas remain the same.
Might be Flixie. A lot of these teams here in this lobby have at least sense that first place. They've tasted it before. They tasted the top side of the leaderboard. They just want to replicate it here in our weekly finals. The biggest switch up from last season to this season, no more Surge Week. So no more going for those heroic efforts in the last moments of the FNCS. Our top 50 teams after these 3 weeks will advance directly to our FNCS Major 3 Grand Finals. So this week means so much for a lot of these teams, including Joe Kloss and Teeny against Sinet and Razumi. This is going to be a good fight between the two. Over here towards Steamy Springs, nobody really has the advantage, so you got to be careful because you don't want to end up in a build fight too quick with not a lot of resources to back it up as Teeny gets tagged up trying to look for a shot. And those are the moments you have to watch out for as he continues to try to pressure his opponents with the Mammoth Pistol. It's a blessing in disguise, but if he overpeaks, exactly that will happen. He just gets lasered back down to the low ground.
Yeah, too over ambitious in his attempt to apply pressure. The right intention, just a bit careless in the peak, and gets punished for it. He was trying to take on both players, right? He was taking shots at one and switching over to the other. A one-man army.
And you can kind of see where the zone is slowly but surely moving up towards the north side of the map. So a lot of our teams that landed on the southern portion are going to have to begin to rotate. But Clownski and Grohl is a team that might have a little bit of center zone very, very early on. You can see that they have the loot that they're looking for. They have heals. They have builds. Right now, they're looking for Surge. And just like Vivid said to start the show, being into the center zone very, very early on in the game may not be as fruitful as some may think it is, because just like Crowns and Glowski, they have to start looking for their Surge.
Yeah, it's not linear, right? It's not just one rule and you follow that and it works every single time in every single situation. They have to be aware of the timings of the teams around them. have to sort of anticipate what those guys are going to do and how they can be in positions to punish that.
In the off-spawn battle, Thomas with their 2 eliminations. That's not much when it comes to Storm Surge. It's about 200 because initially you get 100 HP each. They got both of those eliminations. They didn't get a chance to heal up. So Thomas and Malibuca, even though they have an early game start to their Storm Surge, they know it's simply not going to be enough. They didn't find anybody rotating nearby. The cash spawns, and now they're seeing it as a green light to go. And what do you know? It's Pablo, Wingu, and Bevy on the other side, going up against Thomas and Malibuca. And this is contested for that legendary loot.
Yeah, Thomas and Malibuca had a better claim to it. So they'll be the ones that positioned for that. Another fight here for Cashes, as we'll start to see all across the map. Pink and Vico getting into a bit of a scruff.
These early game skirmishes aren't too much, you know, how mechanically skilled. Honestly, all 4 of these players are. On the other side, it's Refguard and Trippin who are getting back down little by little. Vico playing patient as can be, biding his time, trying to get the pieces under his control. Paying Peekaboo, going for shots with both the Sharp Tooth and that Mammoth. Both of those, you can kind of use them as a little bit of a double pump if you line up your shots right. So you got to be careful of the amount of damage you can output in mere seconds as they continue to fight over that piece control, and all that cash loot is there. And show them, and they're laughing, slowly but surely trying to creep in. Trippin's getting forced back down. Exotic Slap Slash is forced to be used very, very early on. Typically you want to try to save those, but this is just a lot of damage. Pink even goes down. Now Vico's stuck with his back against the wall.
This is tough. Trippin and Refguard very much on point. Trippin will get the finish there. But like you can see, Chauvin and they're laughing are very much going to run in here. The cash earlier that was their initial cash, they knew it was Malibuca and Thomas. They didn't want to take that fight, and so they looked to try and third-party a fight that's already happening that they can capitalize on. And it seems like they've found exactly that. You can see both players trying to attack from different angles, one from above, one from the side. And Trippin and refs need to be careful that they don't get caught out.
And there goes a 4th team. They might not have RSVP'd for this party, but they're ready to crash it nonetheless. And this is just a ton of potential damage going down all around. That's Teeny and Joe there, Vico, who's by himself, Refguard, and Trippin, and then separated. Show them, and they're laughing. This is the worst thing to happen from a team that's trying to third party, because now they're individuals. They see the green light. They're trying to burst into the box. Vico is just using this as a distraction, letting those players fight each other, and he's going to try to look for some sort of opportunity to get some cheeky damage or to escape altogether to try to get Pink back in the game.
See, just a bit of a stalemate. Players very conscious of the fact that there's so many players around them. You have to be careful of all your different angles. Joe will block off every different side, but it won't stop him from trying to aggress and claim space here. They have one thing in mind, and that's to win this fight. Look how aggressive they're being as well. Both players just looking to take their ones. Show them, and they're laughing though. Very much want to re-aggress and refocus and make it a 2v1 if possible.
They're doing a good job. They're simply just backing their opponent step by step and not getting over aggressive. I think they know the situation they're in. They were the 3rd party there. They probably heard that 4th team come in, and they don't want to bite off more than they can chew in this situation. So you see every single duo here in this fight, besides from Vico, who's a solo, is just boxed up hip to hip with their teammate. And then a 5th team. You see the 5th team in the minimap. They're slowly but surely trying to rotate on over. They're going to bet against it because they probably got the surge damage that they want peeking over that direction. So now they want to go center, or as close to the center of the zone as possible. Without mobility this season, you don't want to be stuck on the congested side of the zone. Trippin and Refguard know they're the ones who took down Pink, so they know there's at least a solo running around if he is still here. They could even be possibly camping on that reboot card as Nebs able to save the day with Hellfire down. Each of them getting a pair of eliminations, but Hellfire having 2 overall. So for them, Surge is not going to be a problem at this stage in the game. See some of the action breaking down. That Mammoth pistol just annihilating the builds. That way he can just use that extra shot with the Havoc to take him down. Nebs really showcasing that Mammoth early on.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this duo. Last week, very much impressed and showed that This is a duo that looks to be back on the rise. They're very well acquainted with each other, played with each other in the past, and played some of their best Fortnite when playing with each other in the past. So trying to rekindle that old spark. It seemed to be there yesterday. You can expect to see those guys really digging themselves deep into fights, mid and low ground layers as well.
From one 5-stack party to another, but this one on Rift Island. And we saw the implications of Rift Island playing a massive role in iDrop and Mappy being able to take first place. They captured it twice. They got 30 points off of that, and that is what pushed them over the edge. Axforce, Roban, probably VOD reviewing, seeing all the intricacies, the blueprint that was laid out, trying to be the first team there. They get 15 points for their effort, all that loot, and a huge height advantage with that Mammoth to look over a whole map and every single player trying to rotate from point A to point B.
Yeah, and of course, that was the team that was uber aggressive last week. At one point, they were on the verge of breaking in the limb records. Potentially, it looked like they were on pace to do it. And it was interesting that Robin highlighted that not being the strategy. They don't want to be that aggressive. But look, we have Nebs and Hellfire here on our screens, and who better than Miniminer to bring us in with a little update on what they've been up to.
Yeah, of course. Now we have these guys using the Mammoth pistol to their advantage, and we can see Nebs with it in his inventory right now. We've seen how much destruction this pistol can cause, and it's right here we see Nebs getting a huge tag onto Janice that then Hellfire can go in and clean up that elimination. That's going to be huge for this team for both their Storm Surge and, of course, their loot, and that's why we're seeing them high above Storm Surge at the moment. They do get tagged up by themselves, but, of course, they are able to capture this combat cash as well. So their loot's bolster going into endgame, and is their surge. They're looking good.
Looking good indeed, Mini. Thank you for breaking that one down and really showing not only the offensive end of the Mammoth, but showing the duality overall. You peak just a little too long. You try to rotate. You go from having fun to not having much, trying to heal up. And you're seeing, again, double Mammoth pistol as well due to its high damage output, even for a body shot. 2 well-placed shots, just like you saw Axforce and Roban do very, very early on. You saw Nebs do it as well. It is going to be an instant down. Somebody's game is going to get ruined.
Look at this. Maybe they are going to be back to their aggressive ways. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. Ooh, what a shot there.
Wow. Wow. Really showing the dominance. We got Hideout Bush. And the newest member of Monaco. Got Merstash here. 1,000 above the threshold. They're looking to basically clinch their grand final spot here this week with a top placement on the day. Try to make it smooth sailing for week number 3. Want to get it right out of the gates early on. 33 teams still left alive. 8 teams need to go down before placement points even begin to set in, which is not much of a difference between the teams right here in game number 1. But as the day goes on, if you go down in 26 before those cascading points begin to accumulate, that is what is going to really kind of start to do mental things to you even. You have to stretch your plays, get a little greedy, go for eliminations when it might not be the case in most situations. Ooh. Always catches my attention here.
You can see them just trying to cut to zone now, white lining their way through. The shrubs will provide a bit of cover from the left and right, but ultimately not much to be done there, just trying to get to zone. Roban with a smile on his face, led all players with 20 eliminations in week 1 finals. Was astounding in his efforts to do so. Who knows what he can do now with that Mammoth pistol as well.
Oh
no. Oof. Almost.
I don't know if that player felt how lucky he just got by both of them missing those shots. I don't know, it was a quick happy feet movement towards the end. But man, we just saw something close to disaster striking. 110 above the damage threshold here for Spinaldo. In Crazy World, They have to keep on their toes, looking for the damage. They spot a team into the distance, waiting patiently for them to peek. Interesting enough that they're not trying to use the Mammoth in this situation. At least 80 damage nonetheless, so a good amount of accumulation towards their Storm Surge total. So for Spinaldo and Crazy World, they just need to keep on what they're doing.
Kiri and Ping struggling a bit to get in. You can see makeshift builds to try and provide some sort of an avenue to get in, but even then they've taken a chunk of damages along the way. And here on the congested side, very much going to be a struggle to get much room to breathe. Finally, Ping able to get there, and they can find a bit of solace, but this is going to be another tough rotation for them to make.
Yeah, you can already see and even hear a lot of the damage being dealt, not only to the teams around them, but the teams straight in front of them. And they got some elevation to overcome, but they can also use the natural plateaus there as cover. Try to get from point A to point B, but it's not going to be the easiest journey. Snazy and Podesai, they're doing good up until this point. 4 eliminations. They're really good on mats. 2 slurp juices and 5 different slap splashes. So for them, their only worry is to quickly hop in towards the zone, get themselves a good position. And you can see they're trying to go as deep as possible. You can see the other half of the zone. There's nobody there. So if you can make it to that side, you will be on the least congested side of the map, and you can make and plan your rotates much easier from there on out.
What do we have here? Hide on Bush Mustache. Very much good on Surge, and that's much better to see from them compared to what we saw at times last week. Couldn't really seem to get a grip on things, and that's not what you expect from Hide on Bush, one of the best players ever, one of the best IGLs in the game. But clearly starting to get a better idea of things, and I think as long as Mustache is in line and being kept in check, there's always a good chance these guys can win in any given moment.
See how congested one side of the map is massively compared to the other. It's almost like you draw a line right down the middle, and they're choosing to be on the eastern edge. 147, they're continuously trying to pick up some shots in it, and Razumi, they have the high ground for now, but they get a far pull. So holding on to it might not be the play for them. They quickly use their slap splashes, and they're trying to move to the zone as quick as possible. They're trying to be one of the first teams there, and you see the natural elevation there. They could try to claim the high ground as their own, but they go ahead, they're taken down. Show laughing, and another one. There goes the first knock. Show them's gonna go down. They're laughing, he's trying to get out of the box. He's just stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he has to be able to get out of this quick because the rest of the lobby is on their way there.
He didn't even see it coming, show them. Synod literally used the grind bind to just dunk on his head. He didn't see a thing. Nice and easy, quickly done. That's why you always got to stay on your toes, always got to be alert. You don't see that often. Janice and Reason, we know they didn't actually make it through to the weekly final in week 1, so very much need these last 2 weeks to be top performances. Otherwise, there's a good chance we won't be seeing them in the grand final.
This is a good game number 1 for them, though, because they already went down. We saw Janus get eliminated. He's back into the game, trying to make up for what you even said yourself, lost time and a lost opportunity in week number 1. Week number 2 here is so crucial with so many teams displaced out of their usual placement on that last week as Axe Force with the Breacher and the Mammoth. Call him long range because he's ready to deal damage. 1,300 above the threshold. Him and Robon right now have full control over the high ground, and it's up to them if they want to hold on to it or if they make a mistake.
Yeah, it's not a bad spot to be in by any means. They've got to be careful of those teams on second height, though. Podesai and Snazy very much in a strong position. Snazy's been on a tear already so far this game, and they've added another one to the tally, 6 so far.
Trying to find even more, but you don't necessarily have to look for it. If you look at the resources, they are almost max mats, as some would say, compared to most here in this lobby. You can see him tunneling forward, looking towards the backside of zone. The chance to steal away high ground is now or never for some, as Seti and Cammy They're one of those teams that they're okay with the low ground. They're okay with just bypassing the usuals for a lot of these teams and just playing their own game, safe as can be, to make it towards the end.
Yeah, but they're far from the low ground, right? You see them making sure to elevate as the game moves up and down some of these hills here, staying on those higher layers. Janus and Reason getting stuck beneath, and that might catch them out. You see Reason such low HP now, and Janus doesn't really have many materials to work with, just scrambling around, looking anywhere you can. That's what happens when you get caught out. Rob and Axe Force were looking strong on height at one point, but very much now praying that this pullback will keep them alive in the game.
Trying to play defensive, and as he tries to hold the wall, gets stolen away, gets taken down, and they're out. But the new high ground team, Thomas and Malabuka, it was about time. Contested out the racetrack, 2 eliminations up into this point, an under-the-radar style of game. And this is a team you don't want to let fly under the radar, because they not only stole away high ground, they're making sure to solidify it. They're making sure that's not able to be knocked down easily.
Yeah, connecting on all fronts. Need to make sure they now just continue to watch those flanks, figure out who the threat is. But for the most part, things are looking good for them at this stage. Mustache with a big shot. That's wonderful. Now going to regroup with Hide on Bush. That's what he needs to do. He needs to help him get out of that box. It's such a tough spot to be in, with those players looking right at his face. But he will get out. But for how much longer? There's so many players here scuffed in the back of the zone. They need to make some sort of play to get out of here. Up and over, possibly no. Mustache and Hide on Bush taken out.
Yeah, he was just had to go forward whichever way he was pushed. Ran out of options and time, but Snazy and Podesai, a different story. Still 6 eliminations. They haven't picked up any more since the last time we saw them, but they're continuously staying towards the front side of the zone, the save spot. But Malabuka and Thomas reinforcing yet again, making sure no one can break him down, and this is their chance with a reinforced high ground. They set their eyes down and they're focused to the low ground to try to pressure any team there, force them into each other's box, even slaps towards the outside of zone. Teamwork making the dream work. Malabuka keeping Thomas alive.
Yeah, Thomas saw something in the zone and went deep in the zone to get it, so it must be worth it. Must be the win condition for them. And we'll see the rest of this game play out in their favor. Snazy and Podesai, they've been making plays and they're trying to make some more, pushing their way through. They don't have many builds to protect themselves, so it's going to be about using these shotguns now to find some sort of a refresh. And it doesn't look like it's going to come. Podesai forced Snazy, forced to drop down, and even though he did so spectacularly there, can't connect with a finish.
They got the double pump with the Havoc and the Mammoth to take him down. Seti and Cam, he was set up until this point, a slow and quiet game. But Malabuka and Thomas, they were contested for a moment, but it all gets crumbling down. Into the top 3 we go. Blaha and Mixon, 1 goes down. Now it's all up to Mixon. 4 eliminations. He doesn't have enough to win the heal off. He can only stagger himself here for a few seconds before he has to go right back to the front side of zone. Players keep dropping. Malabuka and Thomas still holding on to the high ground and holding it on convincingly to take the game.
Malabuka and Thomas, one of the premier names in the EU region. A duo full of star players who have yet to win on the biggest stage, but moving in the right direction here in week number 2. They pick up the first game and they do it in spectacular fashion, up on height, soaring through the skies. And a nicely done win from this team, Jacob.
Yeah, and it's almost like deja vu all over again from last season. Contested at the racetrack and boasted the highest placement of any contested team. Game number 1 contested, and it was no worries for both Thomas and Malabuka. They set their tournament day off right with a huge victory and a big lead for them over the rest of everybody else.
Look, we always say when you're contested, you've got to make your games count. Right? You don't know how many you're going to get. Anything can happen or spawn, especially at such a 50-50 spot like racetrack. But they make that game count. They win things big, and they'll look to go back in and do things again. A really nice start to the day. We're going to send it to Zeke and the analysts to break it all down.
Thank you so much, Jacob PR and Levin2K. A huge victory royale. Malabuka and Thomas HD start with a bang. 7 eliminations. And I gotta say, they just played this so well, so expertly, so methodical, right? I love that Jacob called out the splashes into the zone. Like, there's just so many little things that led to this duo getting themselves the victory royale. So well fought, Vivid.
Yeah, a lot of things like you mentioned. Jacob was pointing a lot of them out, but there was one big thing that actually happened to lead into that victory royale, and it's going to be Axe Force and Roban actually getting chopped out, and Thomas HD and Malabuka just paying full attention to what's going on the higher ground. They come out on top of the rest of the lobby, and from there it was smooth sailing. And this is a big victory royale for them here in week number 2 because, last week in week number 1, their best finish was 8th.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it also starts just from how that early game panned out for them, because right from the get-go, being contested at a drop spot that they're so familiar with, they did an excellent job, I think, at acquiring some early Storm Surge damage, but was definitely also very impressed by how they chose to play height, making sure to connect on many different fronts. That way, they didn't necessarily have to be as afraid of getting chopped out as what we saw happening to X-Force, Robin, and even with Snazy and Podesai. I think they made a pretty excellent attempt at trying to overtake height at one point. They were doing a nice job, I think, of tarping directly beneath that ultimate high ground layer in second height position, but just weren't able to actually overthrow Malibuca and Thomas HD up there.
And this is what I was asking for, right? Hey, we can't just let high ground continue to dominate. We have to make plays. And for Malibuca and Thomas, they decided it's our high ground now. Look at me. Good stuff from the duo. I do want to take a look at the standings and kind of see how things are going. Remember, this is still just game 1. It's fine. This is the feeler game, and then we have 5 more after this to really cement our placements and try and put points on our series point leaderboard. But I want to see what duos are maybe not quite in the spotlight quite yet, but are right behind this duo. Remember that Victory Royale means big points, right? So currently they do hold that number 1 spot. Someone like Sind and Irizumi, though, look right below the amount of eliminations, right? Really making up that deficit. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, 8 eliminations, that is going to be huge coming out of game number 1. We also saw Blacha and Mixon towards that end game right there. Going to be putting themselves in 3rd place, so it's good to see them. And of course, our consistency kings, Seti and Cammy, didn't really even see them in that end game, but they always seem to find themselves up in that top 5.
Yeah, they popped up very briefly when they were trying to control a little bit more of that mid-ground secondary height. Like Levin mentioned on the cast, there was a lot of hilly terrain that these teams were essentially trying to tarp through. So it was important, I think, for teams to kind of acknowledge that fact. And Seti Cammy, I mean, they are pioneers when it comes to map knowledge. We've seen how well they're able to utilize even just the map essentials that are near their initial drop spot. So the fact that they were in a late game or in an end game is really no surprise.
I'm surprised for me, I guess, that typically EU game 1 of most weeks is crazy, right? It's explosive. We see 1 or 2 duos which have double-digit eliminations. But so far it seems more even across the board. And I feel like, Vivid, that's a lot more pressure and there's a lot more at stake for these duos, right?
Yeah, I mean, game number 1 here was actually very, very aggressive in the early game. I mean, we pretty much we were towards the 60 player count very, very quickly that game. And as a result, we had so many duos alive actually as that 12th zone was closing in. And that's just simply the result of a lot of these teams had a lot of their Storm Surge. They didn't really have to fight for a lot of it because so many players had already went down in that early game. So Storm Surge wasn't the biggest factor during that game, which means that a lot of these teams still had so many heals and resources going into the end game, which left us with a lot of chaos.
But it almost makes me wonder if it's going to be a reoccurring theme because, for example, that initial box fight that we saw early on with several different teams, it was Tripper and Revsguard. We see Vico and Pink, and a lot of these duos essentially being forced into having to play as a solo situation. That early on into a match is difficult to actually work your way through with the rotations, especially in a no mobility meta. So almost curious to see if maybe some of these teams are going to decide to maybe play a little bit more reserved to at least make it through that initial landing spot.
Yeah, you talk about reserve. I immediately think Seti and Cammy, right? We didn't get to see too much of them. As you mentioned, they popped up for a moment, but I do worry that this is the low ground duo, and if they just keep doing what we know for them to do, they're suddenly just going to be at the top of that leaderboard, right? Just through consistency, just slowing down, saying, look, there's chaos. That's where we thrive. Let's just do what we need to do to get the win.
Yeah, and they honestly weren't really forced to make a play until that final zone. And because there were so many players alive there, did net them a 5th place. But you would imagine usually at that point in the game, it'd be a top 3 or something like that. Nonetheless, still a great game out of them.
There's just so many goodies, though, as well, kind of being littered all throughout that ultimate low ground. And so it's kind of interesting to see which teams are even choosing to make the compromise of forfeiting some of those secondary height positions that they've been able to establish. But if the sacrifices were dropping just to find materials, just to find some extra heals, because we have seen a couple of instances, especially from week 1 finals, where a slight heal off did actually make the difference between first and second place. But at least here in game number 1, that definitely was not the result.
Yeah, no one's wanted to take it there, right? They're like, hey, let's just lock up the game. Let's hit these points. I want series points, leaderboard points. I get it. And you know what? I want to see more action, of course, here from the FNCS. 5 more games before we call it a wrap for today. So let's just jump back into all of the action. 11-2K, Jacob PR, over to you.
Jumping into the action is what we shall do momentarily, but that game number 1 was big. And I'm going to be looking at Thomas and Malabuka throughout the day to see how they replicate and their success of a contested racetrack.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking instantly at the racetrack to see if, one, are they even contested again? Do you make that same mistake, per se, to contest these guys? Very dominant off spawn. And of course, yeah, after the fact, right, how do their games look? I think we've seen them at times in the mid-game look a bit scattered, not put themselves in the best positions to thrive in endgame. Of course, that wasn't the case here in game 1, and I hope that's not the case for them moving forward.
Yeah, and you even saw show them, they're laughing, their new drop spot, and they third party a couple of teams thanks to it. This game, I don't think they actually pulled the vault though. So we'll see how things change around in this next game if they get the luck of that vault on their side, because I feel like that will be a huge game changer for them and their momentum going into the next one.
Yeah, 100%. I think everyone's going to keep their eye on those objectives. We know how valuable they are. And I think there's been many of examples, maybe not here on this region, but in other ones where teams are definitely finding that spy area incredibly fruitful.
Yep, luckily for us, we get to check out that Spire era and everything else because game number 2 starts now. This is it. This is game number 2, and for a lot of these teams, there's no more room for the missteps, especially depending on how your week number 1 went. If you don't have the most series points in the world right now, you need to be trying everything you can for a top placement. For some of the other teams, you could have a relaxed game plan. You placed at the top in week number 1, so it's all about sticking to that blueprint in which you set out for yourself. And just like game number 1 over towards Genjitsu Crossing, it's a congested drop spot, but they're disengaging. They're going 2 separate ways. They don't want to fight right out of the gates.
Yeah, I saw in the feed, Heine going down. And so it looks like Thomas and Malabuka have done the business. Yep, Heine already down. Maigut will follow. And so Malabuka and Thomas victorious here at the racetrack again. And that's interesting because as great of a duo as they are, this year when we've seen them fighting off spawn at the racetrack, it's been 50-50. It really hasn't been them just completely dominating and wiping through a team. And so maybe it's taken them 3 seasons to finally figure out the off-spawn formula that's going to work for them and feel comfortable fighting at that spot. But it's good to see them winning here.
It's good to see them off to a hot start overall. From teams from one side of the map to the next. A contested little split drop on the outskirts, just southwest of Frenzy Field. Lars and Velo looking like they're just trying to put pressure on to Teeny and Joe Kloss on the other side, but a mammoth pistol just making him go extinct just like that. And now they're hot on the chase. 2v1 situation. They read this one like a book they checked out of the library.
I thought it was going to hit the shot dropping, falling off the building as well. That would have been quite something. Looking for the upgrade. Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time really until this fight is wrapped up. There's not much that can be done, and Teeny won't be the one to close things out. It will be Joe, but nevertheless, Veloid stood no chance.
Hit him with the OG. Hit him with the OG dance there for a second. But Robon and Axe Force immediately tries to pull those in the box. Axe Force lands a good shot, but almost gets taken down. Pootrick with the knock, unable to clean up the elimination thanks to Roban. Yet again, this is a team, like I keep saying, huge fans of how they've been performing. I just need to see them continue to execute here in our weekly finals to earn their spot in Grands, just a few short beats away. And a spot, both of these split drops kind of contested here towards the outskirts. Usually you don't see a lot of action on the southwest portion of the map very, very early on. So interesting to see how The game is changing week after week, and players are getting a little bit more daring, but we saw Asa go down in game number 1. Gets a knock very, very early on. 1v1 situation. That's Julian on the other side. Even though he did get the siphon, he did get the cleanup. It just wasn't enough for the high ground and the Terrors of combat. Ooh. That's what I like to see out of Mammoth. Backing down opponents one by one. Artist doesn't really have time to pop that big pot just yet. He's just trying to back up little by little. Volko and him are not in the same box, so they have to be very, very conscientious of either one of these players just trying to make their way in and bulldoze into the box. With very little time, but it's actually going to be opposite. Nebs and Hellfire, they got the damage that they wanted thanks to Storm Surge, and they're just simply trying to disengage.
Yeah, that stat there didn't surprise me. Nebs and Hellfire led all the players in Elims in round number 2, the round just before this one. So again, just goes to show you how aggressive these guys can be and how comfortable they are fighting, right? They love to get there in the mix. They've got great chemistry when the box fighting with each other. So hopefully we get to see some of that showing off today.
I thought they were on the same team for a second. Hedra has a chance to make a sneaky play. They are separated for now. This does look like it's a 1v1. Panics if he does not watch out.
Oh, no.
We're going to have one of those moments before disaster. Strikes, and the first shot's going to go off. Hedra, he gets the first opportunity. But it does look like he's going to escape for now. The battle for high ground, you see in the minimap, Panic's teammates is trying to about face and get there as quick as possible, and Hedra realizes this is taking way too long for my liking. I'm going to try to disengage, but he actually gets beamed out by Eclipse. Panic's teammate, who closes the gap in mere seconds, takes the piece control underneath his own and sends Hedra back to the lobby.
That was smooth from Eclipse. You love to see it. Pain though for Hedra though, because almost you thought he's done it. He's actually managed to pull it off. The main problem is though is even though he was very well aware of the timing, like he realized, okay, I didn't quickly get this on him, I need to get out before his teammate comes. He ran the wrong way. Like he ran in a perfect direction that allowed Eclipse to pincer in and then do just that. So a nice attempt from Hedra, but even nicer from Eclipse there to finish it off.
That would have been really intense. He was able to at least draw it back down to a 1v1. But a team that we haven't really seen too much on the day. I know it's only been one game so far, but Hen and Oogway, superstars of the region, they just need to kind of get back into that old form. The form a lot of people know they can play into. As Razumi and Sined, they're trying to play into their own advantageous position here as they continue to just maneuver around the map. They're peeking, they're going around for some shots, they're scavenging together leftover slurp barrels and heals to try to get themselves up without using too much of their heals. But Kylie and Fastroki, they're not worried about heals, they're just trying to clean up the elimination. 2v1, they have their opponent on the ropes running, even with two different angles. Fastroki has the other one. Kylie trying to go ahead and close the distance just like that. Slash Splash is coming out from Ronnie on the high ground, but it's just not going to be enough. He can't outrun his opponents while building up, and this is where it is going to get dangerous because everything comes crashing down for a short moment, and he's using it as a way to escape. He tries to jump outward, but Kylie and Fastroki, they do not want to let this player out of their grasp. That's 2 more points for their elimination. That's Siphon, that's mats, and resources they're just about to collect.
Kylie and Fastroki did really well there. I don't know how those guys escaped when they got chopped down anyway. Just slipped out of vision, but Kylie and Fastroki were there to clean it up. Oh, look, Eclipse and Panics, they want to get right into another fight.
And see Blaha, no mixing, but a good shot to start it all off. He can easily take this down to a 1v1, and just like that, he does. Siphon gets picked up, immediately edits out. Those builds weren't necessarily his. He's really trying to think outside of the box, but he gets boxed up altogether. But immediately, those instant plays to break out and just stretch himself, build more real estate. That way he could bob and weave in and out of these covers. And now on the other side, Eclipse has to make a decision. Do I continue to try to engage, or do I go for the reboot card and try to get my teammate back into the game? Because there is a strength in numbers in Fortnite.
Ooh, that's a nice upgrade. It's not going to work to his favor. Eclipse, yeah, I think you just got to go for the reboot at this stage. Based off of how much he's healed up, it seems to me he doesn't really have much by way of heals, and so opting for the fight isn't going to be ideal. big props to Blaha though, because this is always a tough spot. A 2v1, your teammate's gone down, like trying to make something work out of that is so difficult, but he isolated the 1v1s, finished them off quickly with some clean, crisp shots. It allows him to stay in the game and maybe pick Mixon back up as well.
I see their idea right now. They're going to try to use the Temple Vault to go ahead and rift. Easy rotation to zone, but with the Mammoth pistols in the game now, that might not be the smartest play you can make, but we're definitely going to see how it works out for Slove and Acid traveling not too far before they get in towards the zone. They have 4 eliminations so far, and this is how they're able to pick up those eliminations. Nebs is already down. He's already knocked, and it's a 2v1 situation from here on out. Even Roban with a helping hand to clean up that elimination as well. So they're definitely in a stride, starting to build momentum here in game 2.
Hayden getting chased down relentlessly. Saw how persistent they were. And they're laughing and show them. They're definitely laughing right now, and they are showing us why they're laughing. With a nice elim there. Caden didn't really stand much of a chance.
It's just from comebacks to flapjacks, even the MK Alpha, just easy to break into the box.
Yeah, what do we have here? The mustaches. On the receiving end of some hurt right now from Crazy and Spinaldo. And it's good to see Spinaldo and Crazy here in this lobby. Spinaldo, a player who has been around for a long time, hasn't quite ever reached the heights of some of the elite players in the scene. But coming back to competing here in EU this season, playing with Crazy, who's a pretty decent player for him to be playing with, to be fair. For people that don't know, Spinaldo actually went to NA to pursue a career in football, playing football, soccer for you Americans.
I was about to ask you, football or football?
Yeah, no, yeah, the real one, basically. And he's been doing quite well here, but I think he's back in EU for the summer and choosing to play FNCS.
Just getting tagged up. Just trying to save himself back. Give himself something to work with. And it's going to be interesting to see how he can continue to keep himself alive in this situation. Because his teammates knocked. He has multiple players around him, have the high ground with both MK Alphas, Flapjacks, and even the Mammoth that we keep talking about that can destroy and destruct builds and even go right through if you time it right with your teammate. Shades of the old heavy sniper.
Yeah, and the mid-game struggles continue for Hayden Bush and Mustache, not consistently making it deep, struggling with certain zones.
You can kind of see the early leaderboard breaking down. Third place, Baja Mixon. Down, out, open for the taking. And even though it's very, very early on, you could easily have a pop-off game. You can move up the leaderboards. We saw it last week, 20, 30 places players and teams are moving up. But at the top level, it's these crucial moments that you look back and you really make a difference. You watch the VODs and you realize how easy it is to fix those mistakes. And I can see a lot of teams just week after week fixing a lot of their mistakes. And that's why you're seeing a whole skill level of a region elevate week after week.
Everybody learning from the players who are doing well. Hen and Uguay instantly up on the island, making their intentions clear, but they will be contested here. They won't get it for free. Shakos and User very much gonna give them a run for their money.
Yep, but on the point itself, it is gonna be Hen, who's separated so far from his teammate Uguay. Little by little continues to build up towards that high ground. You have to watch out, because if you get chopped, it'll all come crumbling down, and he beats him to the punch. He doesn't want to let it lie in their hands if he's going to get chopped down or not. He just wants to reunite hip to hip along with Hen. And these are crucial points for them here in Game 2. 15 points for capturing this Rift Island, but nobody wants to let those 15 points go easy, especially if you're already on top of Rift Island contesting it.
Yeah, this is a tough fight to go for a lot of the time, but they've sort of been allowed to claim it easier than what we see other teams sort of go through to be able to claim things. A fight over here at Mega City is one that will involve Mr. Savage Adil, Chicho, and Trulex. You can see Chicho and Trulex waiting for those two to expose themselves so they could potentially get some shots off. The time didn't come, and so they'll now try to get to zone, and they're very cautious of the fact that they're there. They know where they need to be careful of, what angles they need to block off.
And traveling through there is going to give them a decent sense of comfortability.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't easily break into the build, but we have Cammy and Seti on screen. We're going to throw it over to Mini Miner to break down how their game has went up until this point.
Their game's going pretty well so far, Jacob. We know Cammy and Seti, they always have interesting strategies, and look at this from Cammy. He's actually sat on top of the cache, throwing some of the extra loot and heals all the way over to Seti, and then he just decides, you know what, I'm going to leave Seti there, getting that Storm Surge damage whilst I go and farm up. You can see his materials looking really, really solid, and all the while, Seti sat inside of that bush, trying to use that new Mammoth Pistol, gets a huge tag onto some of the players in the distance as well, and this is exactly how they're playing it out, separately, but playing well.
Yeah, that's nice, right? Because I think a lot of the times you see teams who play towards the edges of the map playing split for Surge, and you sort of can understand why a lot of the time there's not that many players around, and so you can almost get away with it. You're less likely to be punished. These guys are slap bang in the center, and yet still managing to make that kind of style work. They're not split ridiculously far, but covering as many angles and trying to claim as much map control as they possibly can. It's a key to their success when it comes to Storm Surge. Malibuka Thomas, of course, the leaders of the day so far.
It's no strange thing. It's almost like we're taking a trip to the past for a moment. Nazy and Podesai got their position just out of zone. You're seeing a view of the map right now, and so many teams on the northeast end of the map. They're going to have to rotate, and they're going to run into each other, and that's the roadblock analyst Vivid was breaking down to start the show. So the teams in the center of the map right now, if you do not have Surge, you've got to start planning where you're going to get it, if you're going to rotate for it, or just try to hold on to your position. But for Podesai and Snazy, their worry isn't Surge, it's about rotating his zone with so many teams all around him. Quickly beams a couple of shields off of one, but still has his eyes set on the prize, peeking through the cone. The information right now that he is gathering is so vital in terms of keeping them alive and figuring out where they're going to box up next.
Mr. Savage getting involved in the action. We saw them at Mega City earlier, and this...
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, whoa, that was nasty. That shocked me into... I can't speak.
Those are the moments you go back and rewatch, and you're almost just as mad as when it happened to you. I almost got around the corner. Mr. Savage. Is it for you kids and meddling dog? I almost got away with it. Just like Hen, just trying to peek towards the backside with the Mammoth. Takes some damage himself, but you can kind of see what his plan is because the zone is going to move over in his direction. He's trying to preemptively get his spot where he wants to go. That way when the zone continues to pull in that direction, it's a lot easier to rotate to where he needs to be. Almost gets close to another team. You can see him and Oogway are separated from each other, and Oogway needs to find some hills because he's still in the zone rotating.
He's almost getting close to another team. He got really close to another team. It's crazy. And Svenaldo, and yeah, they're going to just be able to cut him off. Oogway's got to cut across those guys to be able to get in. And that's not going to be something easy to do. He won't really be able to be picked up either. So Hen's going to have to play this one out solo.
We got a double reroll going out.
Ooh. Will he make...
I'm trying to think, what augments would you be saving? I'm trying to think. Because the Wild Wasp jars got vaulted. Maybe medium ammo. Maybe soaring sprints. You don't want to use it now to rotate, but you want to save it for later if you have high ground. I think this season has some really good augments in terms of just combining them together with your loadout. So if you might be in shambles, you might have gray loot, you might have green loot. With a couple of augments, it may not feel like it. First Assault is going to be one of them. Oogway, I see Oogway go down in the feed. Refscar take him out. Wheat goes down to fall damage. Eclipse and panics. We saw that early fight where he almost got snuck up on. Since then, haven't had too much to worry about because the zone continues to pull in their favor up until this point.
Golden Clown looking over towards the east. They know there's at least one team there, but there's not much traffic moving through that way, so blocking off the rest of the lobby to focus on those teams might not bear as fruitfully as they'd hope it to. Hen down below on Surge, way down below on Surge. He's gonna need a very on-point Mammoth shot or a miracle to keep him in this game. Both possible, of course.
And typically in the zone, you'll see a lot of the teams either go to the left or the right, not necessarily right down the middle where they're both at. So they might have to be on the hunt to get Surge. And I say they very loosely because we saw Uguay go down to the Storm overall. Creeps back in, trying to find any scraps that are left over. Lucio and Steno on the other side, feeling a little bit of that pressure. Quickly backs on up and changes layers. That's going to be the important part because now he can't remain being the focus of either one of these two teams, as they are the meat in the middle of that sandwich. But now everybody has to rotate, and you can see in the minimap so many players, so many full teams are beginning to rotate first. That means they have the chance to hold both Steno and Lucio out if they want to. Down on Surge. They feel like they have to go. They got the green light. They see he's a solo. Rolls just gets taken down just like that. See, they got a huge refresh when it comes to the build, just adding on top of that. But when it comes to the damage, barely 84 above the threshold. It's enough to allow them to rotate comfortability, but it's not enough because they're going to be looking for more later on in the game.
Oh, Thomas HD. So on point with every shot given. Look how above on Surge they are. That's never going to be a worry for them, especially with this pistol in the game now. But how they maneuver through these endgames is going to be the main worry, the main concern, the main thing they need to get a grip on. Malabuka very much has to take the lead and direct the team in where they move. Hen, we obviously knew he was going for some heroics, and heroics he will achieve. Some nice shots there, but eventually was humbled and brought back down to earth.
It's just one of the things, if you're Hen, you almost have to go for that siphon, that refresh, especially as a solo. You don't want to be down mats rotating in these moving zones. So many dangerous players, especially with the Mammoths and that height. This Firebro is going to be a solo, but he has to make sure to continue to put out pressure and damage so teams don't necessarily look up and try to threaten him. 146 above the damage threshold. A good position for him to be in as a solo, and you can see him continuing to build height, making himself look a lot tougher than he really is as a solo.
Yeah, projecting outwardly to the rest of the lobby that he's strong and comfortable up there, even though we know that's not necessarily the case. This is Savage and Vidil. They've got bigger fish to fry though. They're trying to find their way in, and Savage very much looking for that time, and you can see running in here on the right side of the zone. Gonna be careful with some metal here just to secure themselves in, and now that they've made their way in, you can see Vidil already scouting out, looking for opportunities for any vulnerable players they can pick up.
Farming all this brick down low towards the low ground, just making sure that they're set, ready to continue. And you can see they're on the other side of the zone by themselves. Very little people contesting on that side. That's going to give them a huge amount of space to work with. Thomas, Malabuka, same thing can't be said. They're making space for themselves, getting another elimination, taking out Sined, sending him back to the lobby. Razumi was taken down by Malabuka as well, so that's a pair of eliminations for the duo.
And the timing of this is so paramount. Look at it, there's extra materials on the floor. These guys are both capped out. They have all the materials they could possibly ask for. At this stage in the game, they could just top out the rest of the game. Don't even have to do anything, but we know that's not going to be the case with them two. They're going to want more, they're going to fight for more. But this is setting up to be another really good game for the Game 1 winners, Mr. Savage and Vidil. They're going to have to try and elevate themselves now in some sort of way. Savage looking for a potential chop. And you can see just looking around, scouting, assessing all his different options. It's hard for them to top out with the mats they have. They need to start being proactive. Can't be too passive now with the remaining zones.
Yeah, and the awareness to know they don't have the resources to continue that fight. If it breaks off into a build fight, they'll be fresh out, falling to the low ground with no builds trying to scavenge. So they give it up to Svi and Vacant. We're now putting pressure on the rest of the lobby with 200 above the damage threshold. I say 107, excuse me there. They continue to look for any set of shots that they can look for. Seti and Cammy go down low. This is a good opportunity for them to pick up eliminations.
Yeah, but up on high, those guys need to be more aware. There was a massive blind spot to their left they have to watch out for. Need to be careful that they don't get caught out up above. There will be teams that potentially could vie for it. But as you said, some of the teams down below, the likes of the Setis, the Camis, the Thomas and Malabukas of the world, they're really feeling it this game. They're in their element.
And they're definitely feeling comfortable here, but Thomas, he takes a huge shot, forced to back up, reunites with Malabuka yet again, but the high ground is going to be dominated and won by both Fastroki and Kylie. Better late than never. If they have the resources to hold on to this, they could be in prime position to take the game, especially with so much chaos going down low on the low ground. Everybody's just trying to stay ahead. You see Seti and Cammy yet again making that smart play. They don't drop ultimate low ground, and they're staying in front of everybody else and making sure that they recycle as many of the mats and resources as they can.
And they still have so much to work with. Seti's inventory looks stacked. Everybody else in the lobby really needs to hope that somebody can give them a run for their money quickly, because otherwise they're going to be an ever-present team in this lobby. You can see Oda and Vasquez very much aware there could be solos in the back of the zone, lurking. Anybody that they can use to keep themselves kicking in this game.
This is exactly it. These are the moments right here that separate the best from championship materials. Vidil and Savage, they're doing a good job with very low resources, staying ahead, front side of zone. This is where everybody begins to drop and the battle begins. There goes the elimination from Thomas onto Refsguard as well. Everybody picking up crucial moments here in the late game. Combine that with Siphons trying to keep themselves alive. Into the top 7 we go, and a new team controlling high ground, but it's none other than Seti and Cammy.
Seti and Cammy, so many different amounts of materials they had. They were more stacked than everybody else, it seemed, and they used that to rise to the skies. Firebro going out with a bang. Thomas and Malabuka trying to clear up everybody. It's a bit of juxtaposition here. Like, you see Thomas and Malabuka down on low, claiming space, taking everybody out in their way, and it's Cammy and Seti up on height that they need to clash with. Both teams on a crash course collision towards the end of this game. And Vidil finally being taken out. He was the last piece of the puzzle. And so it just remains these two Titan teams battling it out for the win here.
Yep, but you see Seti, he's low on HP, probably trying to save that slurp juice for this moment so we can get the most effective use out of it. Cammy and him trying to hold on to that high ground. We're going to get towards the mountain soon, but Thomas knows you don't want to let him hold on to that mountain, hold on to that high ground forever. With the Mammoth, he tries to break him out, but takes too much damage. Now he's going to go ahead and fight with it. With the heal off beginning right now, it's all up to Malabuka as Thomas is going for the final efforts, trying to stop the heal off. Gets into the box, 2 more seconds. He gets knocked, but he deals a huge shot. Cammy's getting taken down low. The heal off continues with Seti, splashing both of these players, keeping Cammy alive that much longer to potentially try to go for the siphon, but the heals are out. Malabuka has everything left in the lobby and takes back-to-back games. Game 1 and Game 2 were secured by Thomas and Malabuka.
They can do it from above and they can do it from below. It doesn't matter what layer these guys play on. They will just dominate. 2 wins back-to-back to start off week 2. And they couldn't have done it against a better team. Cammy and Seti have been one of the few elite teams this season who has been consistent, who has been at the top of their game. And they made it look easy in the final moments. Look at them clearing everybody out. As soon as somebody was scuffed and said, okay, I need to go down to low ground, they were there waiting. That shot onto Vidil as well, also nasty. Malabuka and Thomas are insane.
Yeah, it's actually getting to be quite frightening, to say the least, because if you think Major 1, uncontested, top placement. Major 2, contested, top placement. Major 3, contested, back-to-back game wins. The lobby had better watch out and take note of what Thomas and Malabuka are doing. Otherwise, it's going to be too late before you figure it out.
These guys are on a whole different level right now. If they can keep this form going, it's going to start getting crazy. We're going to be talking about back-to-back wins at a certain point. Look, we got to calm down for a second. Let the analysts break that one down. Zeke, what you got for us?
Oh, 11, what do you want from me? These guys already just put on a show. Thomas and Malabuka, they break a new elimination record for weekly finals. Last record, 12. They say let's add 2 to that for 14. a victory royale from low ground as well. Viv, EU has it all. So we're only 2 games in, and EU said, hold on. You thought last week was crazy. This week, we're about to go up another level.
Listen, sometimes, we sit here on the desk and we try to break down plays. We try to get all analytical with it, but sometimes we watch these players, right? And sometimes they are just in the groove where you can tell, like, listen, they are just feeling it right now, and they want every single possible elimination they can get their hands on. And this was one of those games, in my opinion, for Thomas and Malabuka. They created space on the low ground, in the mid ground, and they just used the edits that they had claimed to their full advantage, just kept taking aim duels and kept winning every single one until they finally got 14 eliminations. And I'm talking about it, right? They kept wanting to go for these eliminations, but it was the duality of this team that actually netted them that victory royale, because as much as they wanted those eliminations throughout this game, when it came down to it, Taco, they actually ended up slowing down and playing the heel off.
It's really just the way that they chose to split in those final moments as well, because I would definitely have to give credit where credit is due. And for Thomas, those were 2 very crucial back-to-back huge HP chunks, essentially, out of Seti and Cammy simultaneously. He wanted to provide every single opportunity there for Malabuka to last just that little bit longer there with the med miss. He still had a Chuck Splash available as well, which could have been a difference maker had it not been for the fact that Thomas was able to deal as much damage as he did in those final instances. And also just have to appreciate the way that they were attacking throughout those low ground layers. We saw it just looked so seamless, the way they were neck and neck next to each other, refusing to really give anyone an opportunity to break into their box. It was constantly them breaking down a wall, combat SMG, bringing out the Havoc pump shots exactly where they needed to go, and it's just a duo that was so in sync.
Wild, especially when you looked up at high ground and it got overtaken 3 separate times from V and Bacon to Kylie and Fastroki, then Cammy and Seti. There was just so much chaos up there that Thomas and Malabuka said, hey, we'll run the rest of the lobby. We'll get ourselves a victory out in 14 eliminations. No big deal. Let's take a look at our standings, because these are going to look very, very different. And of course, we know these guys are at the top. 2 back-to-back games, victory royales, back-to-back. Only 3 duos currently sitting with triple-digit points. Seti and Cammy, Vask and Older as well. Now, obviously, this is a lead. We've developed quite a start here, Taco and Vivid. However, my question is, how do we keep pushing this forward? How do we stay in that first place?
Well, what's really cool about the split between first and second here is that you have to remember, Seti and Cammy, they're uncontested at Frenzy Fields. Meanwhile, Thomas and Malabuka, they've been having to deal with another duo at their drop spot, whereas in week 1, we actually saw them having, I think, a couple of issues in terms of like their surge damage threshold control, but it seems that Thomas and Malabuka being contested might actually be the secret recipe for them.
Working out so far for them. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. And the thing that I love so much about that game, though, right, is that we talked about the aggression of Thomas and Malabuka throughout those low ground layers. They needed to get those refreshes, and they just kept rolling with it. But a team that played that game so methodically throughout pretty much the entire thing to where they didn't even need any refreshes, it's got to be Cammy and Seti. We tuned into them going into that first moving zone, and they still had 100 builds to work with. Absolutely insane stuff.
Yeah, even at one point we saw them 900 damage above the surge damage threshold, and it's incredible again because their positioning just seems flawless at times. The way that they choose to attack other player boxes as well, it just seems as though no walls are really able to stay intact whenever these two actually decide to go on the offensive. And that knock right there as well onto Mr. Savage. Mr. Savage of a deal, but they're trying their best to work their way up, but Cammy, Seti just not really providing any real opportunities for these teams to do so. And it's also impressive when you think about the fact that our top 2 teams right now, they're not even prioritizing the objective points that are available.
They're just like, hey, why not? Eliminations, aggression, let's go for it. And I gotta say, just a quick tip of the hat to the Mammoth Pistol playing kind of a surprise factor for us here. Sometimes you think it's good, then sometimes you take over 100 damage to the dome, you gotta recoil and say, hold on a minute, did I get too comfortable? Can't be given opportunities to like that to my opponents. But I want to see more action from the FNCS. I know you do too. Let's go on back over with our casters for game number 3 of the day.
I am ready for game number 3. If I had a seat, I would definitely be on the edge of it. Both Thomas and Malabuka are putting on a show. 52-point lead. And as Taco just said, this is without Rift Island, in which they typically go for.
It's mad. You don't see this every weekend, I promise you. It'll be in it because we still have so many more games left to go and so much more action, so many more opportunities for the likes of Malabuka and Thomas to extend their lead. Or maybe we'll see somebody start and rain on their parade a bit. I would certainly not mind that either. Nevertheless, I guarantee we're going to see a lot of entertainment. The question is, though, are they even going to be able to win off spawn again? Is that something we need to watch out for?
Yeah, it's definitely something that, can you go perfect every single game? If there's any team, it can be them. That's definitely why we like to watch that racetrack right out of the gates. But I'm even looking at the rest of the field. Who can catch up to Thomas and Malabuka? Who can stop them? Because as of right now, 10+ eliminations per game. I asked who can stop them. Game number 3, we're going to find out.
The start of the game always provides us with so much fun and entertainment. A bit more stressful for the players, of course, that are in the midst of battles, but it's something we've all experienced playing Fortnite. Drop in. There's always that ever-present question of, will they, won't they, will we be landed on? It looks like my Groot and Heine are very much going to go for it again, but the drops don't look like they're in their favor. Malabuka and Thomas seem to be landing first, getting the choice of the weapons. Oh no! I was wrong. Heine, my Groot. They might just be able to take it. My Groot goes down. Malabuka on such low HP. And so Heine will be able to get the trade. It's 1-for-1 here. And Thomas was actually taken out by my Groot. So Heine and my Groot will win off spawn.
He just slid in, stole away the drum, and any opportunity of taking the game right out from underneath Tom. Even pickaxed him a little bit. Even with the knock coming in, Malabuka, no resources, no builds, no time to even pop the mini. Heine doing a good job. And everything slows down.
Talk about a blow for momentum, Jacob. You come off a back-to-back dub, and all of a sudden now you gotta sit there and wait for half an hour? That is not what you want to be doing if you're Malabuka and Thomas. And we talked about who can catch up and who can start to close the distance on this lead. Everybody can now.
Great opportunity. It's only 52 points. Setting and Cammy, even though they don't go for Rift Island, typically that's an easy way to close the gap, or just simply winning the game. A huge find by Flixie. Grabs himself the rare Havoc shotgun. He knows that player is going to be around, and this is why you see a crucial importance of early game farming right out of your drop spot. You don't want to be stuck between a rock and a hard place, unable to defend yourself as Shaco's continues to be on the run. Brightbay and Flixie are just hot on the chase. They know exactly where he's going every single step of the way. He's even trying to hide. The fire back does begin, but enough is enough. Shaco's goes down, and a great early game start for Brightbay and Flixie.
Not bad at all. A team that I want to see sort of get back to some of their better form. We've seen them at times this year be so dominant, so impressive. I'd love to see them head back in that direction.
It's 72 over third, 52 over second, almost 100 or more over everybody else. This is where you see Shady Stilts. Nebs contested right out of the gates here. Does look like he doesn't have a teammate. So he might be looking to try to disengage, but Artist knows it. He knows he was solo. He's on the chase there. He's at least trying to figure out what direction he's going as Cade and Gaox finish an easy fight over towards Breakwater Bay. They get the rest of that POI to themselves. You know, Levin, what's your favorite POI? If you're landing right now and you had to pick a POI, not a split drop, where's Levin's POI?
Oh, that's tough. I like Brutal Bastion.
I don't know why. I could have guessed that.
Really?
You like to fight. You're one of the best players in the game. Brutal Bastion, probably one of the most contested drops in any game mode. I'm telling any game mode, Brutal Bastion has half the lobby there, I feel like.
This guy, man. I am not one of the best players in the game. We're not gonna do this.
I have time every week to make sure people know how great you are. But for now, we need them to know Ronnie and Gawid. Looks like they're getting chased just a little bit But that's the thing about the early game chases. Like, if you don't have that damage, at least the shield being gone, it's very, very risky place to continue to chase. Blaha and Mixon, we see them go down very, very early on in game number 2. They're trying to make up for it here. 66 points so far. He needs to try to catch up. He tries to make his way into the box. Joe by himself. That's a 2v1 situation. There goes his teammate trying to backtrack, get to him in the same box. And this is where a 2v2 finally is going to play out. But the peek through the builds. Control over this one's going to be important. Back and forth it goes. Everybody just trading shots, but it's Mixon who has the biggest advantage.
We saw what Blaha can do as a solo in 1v2 situations, so just imagine how these guys will start to look when both of them are up 2v2ing people.
I like the idea. Looking at his augments real quick. Do I have Keymaster? Can I go to the hollow chest? And it does look like they're going to disengage, especially with that third-party team slowly but surely closing into the gap. They want to go ahead and try to grab as many points as possible. But Breakwater Bay was initially won by Cade and Deox very, very early on, but the third party slowly but surely creeping in, try to steal away the loot. They are in zone, so they can fight here for however long as they want, but they break down into the box. Cade, his teammate's going to go in. He tries to edit him out, but the shots are there. Deox bites off more than he can chew. Cade as well. The pressure is on. They're trying to survive, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. He continues to try to run, but Acid continues to fall down, follow him all together, and send that team back to the lobby. Now Breakwater Bay is theirs, or at least whatever's left of it.
Show them, and they're laughing. A team who very much are going to have eyes on them, because one of the few teams who's vying for the Secluded Spire that was actually able to make it through, and so they almost get to set the pace, set the tempo, right? And I think based on how they do today, will very much determine what week 3 looks like. We expect a couple different teams to make it through, so if they're able to have a good week now, they're going to be in the power spot, the power position. They'll hold all the marbles heading into week 3.
Like what Belushi's doing here, he's just trying to take the future ground, take a different angle. Got to be careful. Vortex takes a huge shot. Not necessarily going to be traded off between the two. Klein's just getting backed up. He's the healthy one out of the duo on the low ground as Belushi continues to fight for every single one of these pieces. You can see that he's not playing too risky. He's not biting off more than he can chew, because he knows him and his teammate are separated. So he's being very, very passive, very, very tactical in his approach. Probably has his protractor out, trying to find that right angle. And that's why you see him just backing off altogether. High ground, low ground, different layers, different peaks between the two. Vortex on the other side. But the longer this one goes, more teams are going to come in here, because the vault actually spawned at Shattered Slab this time around.
Was a protractor what you used to get a right angle at?
That's how you get your angles. Yeah, you use a protractor. It's like the half moon, the half circle thing.
It's been a while since I've done maths, so I forgot. Okay, I trust you. I believe you.
I'm gonna get you. Don't worry.
I don't need it. I do not want to go back to maths. I'm good. Only maths I do is counting up points.
We could do that. We could do that. You can see the disengage coming through. Even though they're disengaging and it looks like they're trying to run away, their position on the map will always be known because they have the key card in their inventory. So if they want to go ahead and sneak around, they have to drop it. Otherwise, everybody's really going to know where they're at. It's Podesai, Snazy towards the Citadel. They already have everything that they need and more. So they're just trying to continue their position high up in the sky and just try to go for Surge all around them from any team that's rotating. But since we're on the corner of this map, a lot of the teams that would be rotating through Citadel have probably more or less already made their way past.
Yeah, it's interesting because these guys have a lot of experience landing here, so they, you know, you'd expect to be much more familiar in terms of understanding how much Surge you can get in and out of this spot. Right now, though, it seems rather quiet. I suspect of somebody behind that hill. But yeah, eventually you've got to think they'll start moving away. Finding some more Surge, another avenue.
Strokey and Kylie looking good. A little bit late in zone to rotate on out, but The early zones don't deal too much damage, so as long as you have the heals, you will be well off. But Storm Surge, that's a huge question in a lobby like this. I'm going to go and throw it over to Miniminer to break down Fast Roki and Kylie's Storm Surge strategy.
Thank you, Jacob. Yes, Fast Roki and Kylie landing at the south side of the map, just to the west of Kenjutsu Crossing. Let's break down how they go about their off-spawn strategies. We can see them very, very split, looting up separately. They actually dip into the zone in order to get some of those Storm Surge tags. We see Kylie doing that on the screen right now. And something that I find really interesting about this duo is as soon as they do get these tags, they actually dip back into the Storm, and that's the position that we're seeing them in right now on the live feed. So this is what they're doing. They're going back into the zone, able to use these natural heals, like the Slurp trucks and, of course, these Slurp barrels that are all the way back here. Really, really great map knowledge from this team, but if the zone does continue to pull north, they might run into some problems, so we'll see how they do.
So the storyline has been laid out by Miniminer. We're going to check in to see how that team is performing if the zone continues to pull north. And we might even check them out if the zone does not, see how they're taking control of their advantages in a lot of the situations. You see Vortex and Belushi using the kinetic ore to try to rotate as fast as possible. A lot of teams having to think outside of the box and use things that wouldn't normally do as they're just trying to capture that Shattered Slabs vault. So they're going to be there for a while before we tune in with them again as Seti and Cammy already in a fight. Multiple teams nearby at that, not just them and another one. That's Hedra, that's Dexy on one side. And it does look like the high ground is going to be taken away from Cammy and Seti. So if they're looking to rotate, they're going to have to go through Blaha, Mixin, and Dexy and Hedra, unless they just go right back into the zone and figure out another way to rotate.
Okay, we thought the fighting over at Breakwater Bay was done earlier, but seems that's not the case. Finally being wrapped up here, this Nebs and Hellfire fought. So as I say that, the fighting never stops here, does it?
You said your favorite POI was brutal. A lot of these players are saying maybe it's Breakwater. There's a lot to fight for, especially this could be the slower side of the map with not a lot of teams landing here in the zone, pulling towards that direction, but not much compared to that south side. As Swizzy and Putrick just trying to bob and weave in and out of these covers, deal some damage, but keep themselves on the advantageous end. As Slove using the Breacher to break through the builds, get it all underneath his control. Has to be careful there. You turn the corner at the wrong time. You enter in your opponent's builds. It could be all over. And you see his teammate taking the high ground and going all the way to the front side to try to figure out exactly where they're located so they continue to put down this pressure. But in the feed, Cammy goes down to Fast Roki. Even Yapko picking up one as this fight does slow down just a little bit. You see Asa just trying to hide his movement, hide his location. That way Swizzy probably peeks at the wrong time, but on the other side, Slove still dealing damage with that Breacher, and there goes the peek I was talking about. Doesn't land the shot, so that opportunity went right out the window.
You can see Asa very much trying to control the direction this one goes. Swizzy and Putrick, though, will be quick to wrap around him, come up from behind. Swizzy, he's no stranger to hitting big shots, and that's what he'll do here. Oh, the reload of the pistol is always going to be scary for anybody about. You know, he has devious intentions with that in hand.
They can continue to stay here. They can take this fight. Both of them for however long it takes. Early storm damage, not far to rotate to zone. As long as they have some heals in their back pocket, it's not going to be too much of a worry. As you see, they're not really wanting to disengage just yet. When you expend as many resources as they have in this fight, it's hard, and you can even see the fake going out. Swizzy's fake running away. Putrick's finally going to follow. They didn't peek quick enough, so now this is just going to be a pure disengage out of Putrick and his teammate.
Can you blame him?
No, I can't. It's too long for my liking, and you saw their inventory. They didn't have a ton of heals. So even if they didn't take much damage to the storm, once they get out, they're going to have to be looking for more instead of rotating, trying to get a better spot in the zone. So they want to try just beat them to the punch. Early Rift Island going down. It's there laughing and show them new drop spot. And now the Rift Island. Extra chance at those mid-map objectives, and they're going to take 15 just like that.
That's nice. We know that this is a team that wants to play for it. They want to play that way. They want to dominate everything. They want to have the best loot in their game. And 4 slurps in Shodom's inventory is pretty in line with that, I'd say. Max materials as well. Doesn't really get much better than this, Jacob.
Definitely does not, especially you add in the height that they have with that Mammoth. Once they start feeling comfortable enough to start peeking off, that's where a lot of this lobby will begin to feel that pain. Savage and Vidil. They get the vault underneath Rift Island. Not as fruitful of loot, but at least it's something. You're seeing him kind of change in and out, get extra ammo. Top his shields off with those slurp barrels to try to give himself the best chance, but a fight's gonna break down from one side to another. Trippin instantly ends one, and the help from Hedra on the other. So that's another duo down and out of this lobby, but now the eyes are set on both Refguards and Trippin as they have a long journey to go before they're in zone yet again.
Yeah, they need to just sort of white line their way in here. It's gonna be hard for them to wrap on either side. They've got to try cutting, but even then there'll be difficulties there. Refs has done well there. The player's sort of stuck in your face. You just gotta hit the shots, and he did.
Kind of one of those situations. Ronnie missed the breacher. It's not as easy to hit those breacher hip fires, especially when you're moving and grooving just like that. But those are those pains that if I would have just hit the shot, it would have been a different song and dance. As Fast Stroke and Kylie in the feed, he took down Cammy very, very early on. That's their one elimination. That credits to 315 above the damage threshold when it comes to Storm Surge. It's just their position right now. They're unable to continue moving forward. You see how busy it is on the southern side of the map. So they're not going to bite off more than they can chew in any one of these moments. They're just playing calm, cool, collected to get to the next stage of the game. As the zone closed, next one is going to begin to reveal itself, and that's where a lot of these players are going to have to rotate. But as I called out, Cammy being down, Cammy being out, well, he's back up, and now they have Storm Surge to worry about.
Yeah, this is not the kind of position we're accustomed to seeing them in. We often see them in better positions, more controlled, more say on how other people around them have to play the game. Here, though, scrambling for anything that will keep them alive at the moment to try and outheal.
The thing is, if they still have their heals, they can try to...
Fanayan could do the funniest thing ever here. Oh, man.
Imagine how steady he feels right now. I just got you up.
That's tough. But I know Fanayan will be very happy about that.
Good loot, resources. Said he realizes he probably can't make it on his own, so he's going to try to fight his way out. And, well, he exited just a little bit different way than he'd hoped. Back to the lobby. See Refguard healing up backside of zone. And since it wasn't them that actually fought him, he can actually rotate almost unnoticed, especially since the zone is now pulling back in their direction. Below the damage threshold. This is where a lot of these teams don't necessarily get to dictate how they get to play anymore. If you're above on Surge, you play comfortable. If you're below on Surge, you need to figure out how you're going to be able to find it. A couple shots into the distance, unable to land any, so his job continues. Spots a couple teams around him, but doesn't want to put himself in any position in which he thinks is dangerous. Here's a player down low, goes up, 1v1 situation, a chance for Storm Surge, but Caden's just backing up, and there goes the one pump. And there goes the surge that he needed to barely tip him over the top.
I feel like I don't see that a lot nowadays. Well, it was a nice one there. All he could see was the head, and that's all he had to hit to clean it up.
From one side that is just stacked and heavy, to this side of the map that very little teams have a chance to rotate to just yet. It's the center of the actual zone that just seems stacked. 5, maybe even 6 teams there battling it out. It's Fanayan trying to make up once again. A big play and a big shot going to be fired onto him. He gets forced back, but Moneymaker is there to alleviate some of that pressure. He's going to drop down, start the fight, but another team, Smokey and Wheat, begin to move in. And the drop from the top, Wheat doesn't see it coming. Fanayan is able to knock down one, battling from behind, gets that piece underneath his control, tries to go back-to-back, but it's Vidil out of nowhere with an elimination and a chance to get Mr. Savage back up and back into the game.
I thought it was going to be all over for a moment when Savage dropped there. It seemed like everything was going against him. But Vidil doing the business. The problem is, though, in that time that Savage has been brought back to life, it looks like another team, it's Trippin and refs, are going to have something to say about it. And we know Trippin and refs have been sort of just lagging behind this whole game, playing the catch-up. And finally now an opportunity to finally get ahead of another team, and that's Mr. Savage and Vidil they'll try and move in front of.
Brave about this all is Refsguard even got Tripper and reboot card and back into the game during that earlier fight that we saw go down between Seti and Cammy. And now this is their chance. A second life here in game number 3, especially for Trippin with 66 points. This is the last game before the half, and it's very indicative of how you really get to perform on that last half of the day, especially if you're fighting for first to get as many series points as possible, cushion your lead before week 3. But Mr. Savage goes down to the backside of zone. A short-lived revive for him. Now it's all up to Vidil yet again.
Oh, the side Snazy. Another game where, here at this stage, they're just causing havoc. They're really making it difficult for players. You see there, just pressing onto Flixie and Grippe.
Refs and Trippin are down now. You see Hide on Bush and Mixon taking down each of those 2 players. Gripe's going down as well. So many teams getting stacked and jumbled due to Storm Surge. And for those that are above, that get aggressed on, it's just one of those situations where you can't really control it. You just got to get away from all the madness, as Vidil still doing good by himself. Quickly goes towards the mud before he rotates on over. Unfortunately, him up, he ends up in the water, so no more mud for you. Vidil has some height to overcome. See some teams rotating in the distance, even one behind that tags up Vidil just a little bit. He has 6 big pot. Shields aren't necessarily a worry. For him, it's just getting to zone, saving as much of that HP as possible.
And he did well to even get up and over that hill there. And often see players just getting stuck underneath and caught out, especially when they're solos. So Vidil doing a brilliant job moving through here. Great timings, blocking his back off, making sure not to take too many risks, not getting too greedy. And it is paying off for him.
It's paying off tenfold. Slap Juice being popped for Podesai, trying to get himself back up to tip-top shape. Spots out Belushi on the other side of that cover. It's not a fight he's going to take just yet. They know they just got to wait a couple more seconds before zone begins to pull. They're one of many teams on the front side as well, so getting greedy here could be disastrous for anybody in this lobby.
Uguay and Hen. Feels like a rest of the lobby. There was once a time where these two would have been considered arguably the best duo in all of Fortnite. And even though we are far removed from that time, this is a chance for them to kick it back to the past for just one game at least. But it is always difficult to hold on to height from this early of the zones. Always going to have so many players looking up at it. You see Snazy and Podesai playing here, second height. They're going to potentially start looking if they can stay alive. Snazy just fell to fire, bro, there. And Vidil will profit from that one as well. He's thinking, oh my goodness, how about I just walked into that? But how is he going to walk out with a player in his box? He needs to try and create some space, create some distance. And he's going to have to use all the remaining builds he has really to just try and get away.
From his solo clutch third zone in week 1 to watching it here again in week 2, Vidil is a must-watch in everybody's eyes. But Hen, Uguay, they've solidified and reinforced that high ground. Podesai, he is a solo without Snazy, trying to travel through all this chaos without very many builds, trying to drop somebody into the palm of his hand. The shot's going to be fired, but that's a decision he's going to regret. He gets turned and burned, taken down, sent back to the lobby. Now they're laughing and show them. They're trying to be the front runners here with another elimination being found, and now they get credit with a Slurp Juice. They could preemptively pop this and have a chance at height if they have the builds to match it.
Yeah, this is a decent find for them, but you can see them struggling to actually get back into the zone, right? The timing of that refresh wasn't too ideal. Now they're going to be the ones lagging back behind as they went for it early in the transition. Are able to sneak their way into zone, but again, using this time now to settle down, use some heals. But action will continue. Zone moving again. You see them transitioning much earlier that time, moving towards frontside low ground as quickly as possible. Their intentions are clear. Steno and Lush very much now trying to stick together side by side, shotguns in hand. They just need to make a play to survive, anything they can find. And they might just have their eyes on the players up on height. You can see them looking up for it. They realize that might be a weakness for them. Hen and Uguay not looking at it, not watching their flanks, and they will get caught out. This is the problem with holding height for so long. You can just get caught out falling asleep, and it won't be Uguay and Hen to hold on to high ground. Hen doing his best to stay up, but as he drops all the way down, eventually will be forced out of the lobby. Show them, and they're laughing. Did their best to try and find a good spot, but they ran out of materials and so had no real space to claim.
This is huge for their life, and Zone pulls back. That allows him to pop that slurp juice. His teammates down low to the low ground. He's passed him all the mats, all the resources. Lesho and Steno towards the high ground, holding it on, putting pressure down everybody below. Dexy's here as a solo, trying to maneuver, trying to bypass everybody. So many pieces are not his, so he's going to have to give up his position. They're laughing, now staggering himself towards the backside of Zone. He has to stop the Menmis, though, in order to edit out. Lucio is there towards the high ground. He gets tagged up just a little bit. Shields are gone, and so is he. Back to the lobby they go.
They're laughing. Has done so well to stay in this game, and is going to try and extend his lifeline, and it won't happen. Almost, just almost. Swizzy, Putrik, he needs to try and move up this hill, but no materials. Is going to be so tough for Swizzy to even really do anything. Putrik trying to stay alive as well, but again, you're seeing as all these players with such low mats are trying to move up. It's going to be a matter of who just has anything to even build with and protect themselves right now. And so for Kombec, he sits above comfortably, and he's just going to weigh it out. He doesn't need to make any sort of movements, any sort of plays. All his opponents are going to just fall at the wayside. It's too easy for Kombec as he just sits there. He was the one with the builds. He was the one with the prime position. And so he can sit back, relax, kick his feet up, and claim the victory. And he will be chuffed about how that one's gone for him.
Yeah, it's one of those games. It doesn't kind of pan out like you think it did, but you close it out in the end. A huge effort. That was a big find on Alushi there, and that's where they continue the ball rolling. They continue to pressure all those teams. Even though Perhawa did eventually go down towards the backside of the zone, these refreshes that Kombec was able to find were massive and set him over the edge because he doesn't even have any heals.
Look, as much as Kombec gets all the praises for being the one in the final moments to close things out, but Howell was going crazy. 5 eliminations as well. The work he put in to set them up to be in that kind of position should not go unnoticed. This duo, again, will be very, very chuffed. The zones worked in their favor, and they're able to claim a win because of it.
Yeah, but we did see at the beginning of that game, Thomas and Malibuca, 52-point lead. They went down early, which opened the gates up for anybody to close that gap or even take first. But we're going to throw it over to Zeke and the gang to break it all down.
Thank you guys so much. As these guys just talked about, that team in first place, Dunzo, right? Suddenly floodgates are open. Every duo's looking around thinking, we could make a comeback. We could jump up these standings, can't we, friends? Right? You can, we can. And it becomes a mad dash. In the end, though, Kombec and Perchawa, they get themselves the victory royale. 8 eliminations as well. A massive kickstart to their day here.
Yeah, and I mean, to just highlight the comeback that you're mentioning, I mean, first and second place in Cami and Seti, both of those teams going down, so it's going to be even a larger jump up. But yeah, I mean, for this duo Kombec here, the comeback for them individually as a team, right? Their first 2 games, they got 50th and 24th. So to transition those 2 performances into a victory royale is huge.
It really just came down to Kombec and Perchawa having the ideal positioning. Again, they were essentially the only team that was basically able to keep up with where these moving zones were actually pulling back over some of that natural height, some of this natural hilly terrain. And fortunately enough for Kombec, the fact that he didn't have any more of that med miss remaining, kind of just had to bank on whether or not other teams were essentially left with no heals of their own. But I kind of couldn't help but notice Hen seemed to play a little bit of spoiler there for their laughing and show them, because they were not expecting that drop from height for Hen when he was initially chopped out by Seno and Lushi, and it was unfortunate for sure to see Hen and Uguay kind of struggle there with maintaining the high ground. But when you don't anticipate these teams to be dropping from those layers into your box, into your vicinity, it's easy to get caught off guard, but won't impact their laughing and show them too heavily as they've actually worked their way up into second place.
Yeah, and remember, Malibuca, Thomas, they had a massive lead, so though they dropped the ball here, it's fine, right? They're still okay. But their laughing show them. Remember, we did talk to Pablo, which is one of those two, at the beginning of the show. And they're trying to kind of put on a show for us here in week number 2. Now, again, we're halfway through the competition. They're trying to put series points on the series point leaderboard. So based on where they end after these 6 games, we'll determine how many of those points go on that separate leaderboard. There's still so many more things, so many more duos to highlight. But I think we have an upcoming very special interview with a shining member of our community that we'll get to in just a little bit. Very quickly, though, how did this feel, right? Finally, we get those top 2 duos going down. And for me, I'm like, what happens? Did it go the way you guys were anticipating this to go?
You know, this game was a little bit slower than I feel like some of the rest.
That's how I feel too.
It was also, not a lot of teams alive in the end game there.
No, it definitely felt like a lot of solos action as well coming into play here.
Yeah, very chaotic, very disjointed, but it's all good. Remember, 3 more games to go. Now I talked about and teased that little interview. It is ready, a shining member of our very own community. We've had her on before. Why not bring her back? It is none other than Mama Benji Fishy. How is it going? How are you doing?
Yeah, it's going well, thank you. Yes, enjoying the games.
That's awesome. So, Mama Benji Fishy, we have to talk about this. No mobility meta. A lot of these duos are struggling. Do you have any insight, any advice for the duos to try and make something happen, especially because a lot of them still need those valuable series points?
Obviously, no rotation, or it's a lot harder. So you've got to just be more strategic, haven't you, in the way you rotate, how you get surge. Obviously, then it makes end games much more skillful, etc. So I think you just got to see what's around you and try and make the most of it.
Yeah, of course, keep your eyes peeled. And, you know, everybody watching at home is keeping their eyes peeled on a lot of these duos that are still in the running for a spot at the Global Championships. And out of the ones not qualified yet, who do you have your eyes on?
Well, obviously, I want to see Mr. Savage and Vidil get through to the finals.
Of course.
As well as some of the sort of like the OGs, so like Endretta, Lecce, but also like I'd quite like to see Jalen and Vico. Those get through as well. But it's tough. There's so many of them that I would like to see.
Of course, everybody loves seeing some of the competitors that we have for these duos, but Mama Benji Fishy, you are known for basically attending every single Fortnite event. So with the Global Championship happening in Denmark later on this year, can we expect to see you there? And if so, what are you most looking forward to?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I've already got everything all booked, so really looking forward to coming along. I think it's a great opportunity to be able to meet everyone in person, and the whole atmosphere of like a LAN event. The last rally event was incredible, so I'm looking forward to seeing the atmosphere of the LAN and getting to meet you guys, hopefully.
Absolutely. We're going to make that time. Now, of course, for all the fans, where can they find you?
Just quite straightforward, Mama Benji Fishy on all socials. So, straightforward.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And, of course, we can't wait to hang out with you at Globals.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Thank you so much for having me on the broadcast.
Absolutely. Mama Benji Fish. You guys got to go and follow her for sure. But it's that time. Halfway through, what happens? Let's find out right now. This is game number 4.
We're jumping right back in. It is time for us to continue the day. We've had 3 games already that have been very, very telling, Jacob, about how this competition is looking, how the season is shaping up as we head towards the grand finals. Look, I'm gonna say this. We need to be very, 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 very excited as we have game number 4 right on the way. Let's jump in. You're muted. Let's hop into the action. Jacob is been a fun free game so far. I'd like to have seen, of course, that previous one was a bit of a switch up in pace and tempo, right? The first couple we were seeing these two titans on our screens, Malibuca and Thomas, dominating the play. And let's see if we can actually get them doing that again. Of course, they went down off spawn after winning twice in a row. And Malibuca using that rifle like a laser beam. But there's another player here. What's going on? There's not just 2 teams here now, there's 3. Malibuca and Thomas, they won off spawn, but are they going to actually survive this game off spawn? Because there is another team here. Fortunately, they've managed to grab their bearings relatively quick, so it's not going to be an easy cleanup and swoop in. But I was getting very, very worried there for a second. Gawid and Ronnie, they were trying to start something. They were trying to get involved in the action. But fortunately for Malibuca and Thomas, it will be a business as usual in regards to the off-spawn battle between them and Mygoot and Heine. It didn't allow that long wait to derail their momentum. They've pushed on rather strong.
That was a big fight for Thomas and Malibuca. And to me, it's big for a number of reasons, because now they have the confidence. I lost that off-spawn exchange in that last game, and if they didn't have the confidence before, now they know they could bounce back. They have that mental stamina to keep themselves going. And Swizzy and Putrick, they're looking for another opportunity, especially with that knock onto Roban. And now they're on the hunt to where that solo teammate could be hiding at, but they're going to take a pause. They know it's going to take some time if they want to go back and get that reboot card, so they're going to stop, get that holo chest, bolster their loot before they continue moving forward.
Oh, dear me. Malibuca putting that flapjack rifle to work. Since day 1 of the season, Jacob, I've said, like, this rifle, the sound of it is just so intimidating when players are just spraying you down with it.
And then 7 seconds of continuous spray because of the 45 bullets in the mag, and then you add on the slower rate of fire than some of the other rifles. If you time it right with your teammate, you can continuously make that player hold on to their covers. Thomas and Malibuca just going up and around. It's like you try to third-party me, you see exactly what happens with the blink of an eye. Down goes one. Thomas is there, ready to clean up the next, has the sharp tooth, the back-to-back as well, with the shot coming in from above. Possible third party lending that helping hand, and that's there laughing, who steals away that elimination. But it started off with that Mammoth and Thomas HD causing so much chaos from across the map. But a fight that we've seen so many times, Slove and Asa just trying to go against their opponents. A lot of shields just being dropped down. MK Alpha dealing out so much damage, and they have them separated. Slove is going to be the first one there, trying to knock on the door of Swizzy, not allow him to heal, and there goes that knock as he tries to get away. Now it's up to Putrick to try to figure out what he's going to do as a solo, and he's spotted out from a mile away, and the shots continue to get fired off in the distance. Luckily for him, he turns the corner at the last second to keep his game alive.
Yeah, Asa and Slove, as much as they haven't maybe had the influence in some of the latter game, they've definitely been ever present in sort of the earlier and mid-game parts. And we see them not afraid to take fights, and sometimes it punishes them. At a time like this, they will come out on top.
So for a lot of these teams, you get your early damage, elimination, whatever it may be, you put in your back pocket. You can continue to have your eyes set forward, steady. What seemed like a smooth game plan throughout the first 2. Now getting more and more contested. More and more players rotating in their direction, so it's not going to be as easy as a drop as it was up until this point. And that's Teeny, who has that little bit of high ground. Joe Claus is separated, along with Cammy. So you kind of have mirrored situations between the two, but again, it's the Mammoth pistol coming out from Cammy that makes the difference, allowing Seti to go forward. He sees that as green light. He's ready to go, but he disengages for that short second. Cammy gets fired back on, and now they both have realized the situation that they're in. They're going to stabilize and reset.
Last game for Cammy and Seti was not in line with the kind of games you expect them to have. Very much struggled a bit, and so this time round, not going to be the same, at least from the beginning it looks like. As I said, they'll be able to play the game a bit more accustomed to the way they're used to.
Jitsu fight. We would see it a few times today. Again, you can see by the minimap alone, the two actual teams landing there are taking way too long to deal with each other, which kind of forces in third parties. You even saw Savage and Vidil rotating in that direction to try to go ahead and clean that one up, get more points for their totals, get Surge early on so they don't have to worry about it as much later in the game. And they know at least one more player's there. Griff, gotta be careful if you're popping the minis and the big pots. They will hear you healing, and they will know you're down there. And that's exactly why you could see them not even looking like they're disengaging. They know somebody's down there, and they're ready to look for them, no matter how long it takes.
Will their stubbornness cost them, though, is the question, in terms of timing. Ooh, he heard him. Kylie heard him. And fortunately for Strokey, he's right there, because for a moment, Griff really could have made that interesting. Caught Kylie out.
Yeah, it's that last switch you said to yourself. As soon as he switched to Havoc, tried to defend himself, that's the same thing that gave him away. Janice and Reason trying to pick up the pace here in the second half of the day. But it's Nebs and Hellfire who they have in their lines of sight. And they're continuously falling, trying to push them outside of the zone. There's another team right in. The first shot from Mam is going to be fired. A near miss. As Nebs survives, he's able to rotate a lot quicker. He's using the ice in the minimap. You can see it to try to rotate very, very similar to what teams are doing with the mud.
And to be fair, considering the stakes for them, it's been quite a quiet day. We know that they need to be one of the teams doing much better today. Of course, they missed out on significant amounts of series points in week 1 as they didn't qualify through to round 3. So they need to make up for that here today. Show them, and they're laughing, doing exactly as they need to be doing, right? When you are trying to claim a spot that is so heavily contested, like Secluded Spire, when you do get the chance to play out at that spot, you need to be dominating. You need to be playing well. That's exactly what they're doing.
Especially if the ball spawns on that side of the map. You got to take advantage of the free 3 points, all that loot. And then the rotation. This zone would be perfect for a rotation out of that POI. But what was once a 52-point lead for Malibuca and Thomas has been cut down little by little. And if they want to continue to build on that lead that they started in the first couple of games, they're going to need a huge momentum shift, especially since they won that off-spawn exchange quite easily. And you add on the fact that there was actually a third party there as well, probably going back into the VODs, watching what goes down towards the racetrack, and in their mind they thought, hey, this could be a free third party, especially if they don't see us coming. But it actually was the opposite. They finished their fight quickly, turned around, and then took out the team that was attempting to third party. And that's just adding to their totals. Now they see them quickly trying to move in towards zone. And they're one of the teams that we know goes for Rift Island more times than not, but not today so far. So I'm expecting it's about time that they try to contest up there.
Yeah, I'd love to see them have it. I feel like a lot of the Rift Island fights we've seen today haven't been quite as grueling as what we saw in week 1 at times.
You see them just instantly trying to rotate across the map. They have some sort of blueprint or sense of where that zone is going to pull, and they're putting all their eggs in that basket. As we tune into Podesai and Snazy, who are getting their loot cache. Unfortunately, it isn't legendary, but judging by their loadout right now, it is definitely going to be a massive upgrade to what they currently possess. There goes the shots again. You kind of see when the players are getting chunked out by the Mammoth. Shield bar just disappears with just one shot. And it's kind of like that double-edged sword. It deals a huge amount of damage, the potential for a knock, but same thing could be said if you're one rotating in the open, just like we're seeing Kylie and Fastroki begin to do. They don't got far to go before they are on Steamy Springs, and they have options. They can kind of white line to the zone where you see Steamy Springs ending, or they continue to rotate towards the south, where more times than not is going to be the least congested side of the map. It's going to allow you a little bit more flexibility to kind of rotate in and out of the zone.
Kylie and Fastroki very much been the kind of team where, given the chance to get their surge out the way early and pick their spots, they will often pick the right spots, right? We're seeing them deep in games, really just making things happen. And I think it's because of these sort of aggressive early plays, like where they are going for surge in this kind of manner, capitalizing on teams who maybe quite haven't got their rotations on point.
Clean and easy rotate. A lot of those teams that were already north rotated earlier on in this game. So it doesn't look as congested right now, but a lot of teams need to prepare. If it continues to pull towards the south side, it is going to get more and more congested, where a lot of the teams are going to stack up and not necessarily try to gatekeep, but that's just kind of what happens when so many teams are stacked up on that side of the zone, as Video and Mr. Savage are taking that rotation I was talking about early on. You just continue to go south, you go to the least congested part of the map, but it only really works if you're piled up on that storm surge damage, which I hope they are.
There's certainly been opportunities for them too, as they've rotated all the way from the east to the west.
And this is a moment for pause. They have all that loot here in this situation. We talked about the Mammoth pistol and how much damage it does in an instant. So they want to make sure that their shields are topped off. That way, if they do get tagged up in the distance, it lessens the potential of that getting down. And if you see in the feed, as I saw Reason going down somewhere, maybe even Janus, so they're probably stuck in a fight, just like a lot of these teams that are on the north side of the map as the zone continues to pull towards the south.
Yeah, it's not easy to traverse through. But last season we saw players with very much sort of almost cheat rotations with the katanas. It was quite easy to get from point A to point B. Now we're seeing these guys getting punished much more often. Oh my goodness, they're laughing, and show them are gonna be cut out from the lobby much earlier than they would have liked.
It's just one of those situations where we talk about opportunity to the vault. Have to be able to capitalize. And they're laughing. He just didn't get the memo to back up and change layers. By the time they went to reunite, it was just too little, too late. And a huge reward for Teeny and Joe Kloss. They got 4 slurp juices, 6 splashes as well. Not going to waste any time popping the first because he gets beamed trying to go up towards Rift Island. This is where the contest is going to come out. Teams, game after game, are realizing the valuable 15 points that is up for grabs and the loot at the top of Rift Island. Third-party shots coming in the distance. Joe Kloss got to be careful. Damage from all around being dished out. He can feel the pressure. But you can see Teeny, calm, cool, collected, not making too many antsy plays to try to save his teammate, keeping his angle and let his teammate reunite with him. That's where they're going to find the safety and the strength in numbers. Oh. Huge opportunity there. Tries to go for a jump shot, but it's better and Darm who take him down. You see the loot, the mythic MK Alpha. You can tell they at least traveled through Rumble Ruins to get that one, and they're continuously putting that pressure to try to back down their opponents layer by layer, keep everything that they're around underneath their control, and it's just right there from being captured. So if they can somehow push Joe Kloss and Teeny out of this position, they can easily capture and then backtrack to get the lead.
Yeah, you see both these teams just, again, playing it slow, trying to claim and control every single build there as possible. For Teeny and Joe, they're just going to try and catch one of the players out. They know that they're somewhat split here. They see them attacking from both sides. It's almost about picking which one do we aggress onto. How do we change the tempo and the pace of this fight? Catch them out when they're not really expecting it. Darm, though, very much going to be the player who didn't get focused. And so, as both players split, Joe and Teeny will execute the plan to perfection. Jumped in on Better when Darm wasn't ready. And then once they picked up Better, they switched their focus onto Darm and took him out rather swiftly as well. These guys currently are very much on it when it comes to these 2v2 fights.
Yep, those are those split-second decisions that make or break the game. But we're going to go ahead and throw it on over to Mini so he can show us the impact of these vaults and these mid-match objectives.
Thank you, Jacob. We saw teams battling it out for that island. That is, of course, very valuable. But another thing that's valuable are, of course, these vaults. We can see teams really prioritizing these when they're at their drop spot and when they do get the spawn of the key. We can see Acer and Slove going inside of that vault, and it's valuable. Of course, you get 3 points for it, but you, of course, also get some loot as well. That mythic Flapjack and, of course, all the extra heals that are there. These guys are set up for success, and they've got a boost of points. I'm excited to see how they do in this game.
Is almost a little bit of an understatement for a team I really want to see perform to the best of their abilities, but Malibuca seeming like he's already knocked. They have 4 eliminations. Now Thomas has his back up against the wall. And already you can see in the feed, catching up, the eliminations have been cleaned up. Thomas was just getting third-partied and sprayed out for that moment, and you see him expending these extra builds just so that way he can build more real estate, build more cover to try to get that revive onto Malibuca. They're back into the game, and let's see if they can make up for that opportunity that they almost just lost.
Yeah, there's no time to waste for them, right? Of course, one of their biggest competitors, the team that could potentially catch up, has gone down, so they need to try and do their best to extend the lead. And just for us, for the sake of the story, imagine how incredible that would be. The 3 games you actually see them get to play out. 3 wins. That would be pretty crazy. Refs currently now trying to avenge Trippin. As this fight, not a favorable angle, but he does actually come out the favorable player, swinging to his left through a window in it. That's not one you often see. And both players just missing there.
Above and over.
Nice.
Finish that one.
The siphon comes in from both players as well, and so we're getting back to a decent HP spot. And you can save the med kit as he gets closer and closer to the zone. I think he might have spotted something else that you could have used.
Yeah, it almost seemed like he was toying with the idea of taking the Mammoth. But you kind of see the situation is he has to travel all the way to zone. He's going to need those med kits later. Cam is going to need something. His teammate goes down. He gets a knock on the Hellfire, but the luck has just run out. Nebs again. It's that Breacher Mammoth combo tearing through builds, and now you add in that mythic tactic, it's almost over.
Yeah, that's really tough, man. All these players on congested getting caught in these little fights that they can't really escape from. And even after all that battling, you still got to make a pretty long rotation into zone alongside a lot of these different angry teams that you know are going to be hungry for Surge. Nebs and Hellfire, they ain't got to worry about that. It's at 500 above. And it looks like they're going to even actually choose to look for a rift here. We'll see how that plays out for him.
Well,
say it ain't so. Surely not.
I think we're literally going to see how it plays out for him.
Oh my gosh. Not again. Surely not.
Why did they test
my goodness. Thomas HD.
I feel like
unbelievable.
Yeah, I feel like every FNCS should have been a warning of that.
Every single day on my timeline, I'm seeing people posting their best clips, you know, hitting shots with this. Oh my days, Thomas. He's telling every single.
No way!
Oh no, what are we watching?
I don't know, for some reason I'm not scared for him.
You think you're the king? He's the king. He's the best. You can't stop him. Mammoth pistol in hand. Who's better? I don't think there's anybody else. He's stuck underneath some builds here, and look, there's a good chance he might go down, stuck between like 2 or 3 different teams. But the entertainment alone he just got from Thomas HD, that is why he is considered one of the best in the game. Oh my goodness, that was unbelievable.
I literally thought we went from one replay to another replay of Thomas HD, but nah, that was live, that was in action, and quick thinking coming out of him. But unfortunately, him and Malibuca were just a little too separated there. You saw Malibuca go down, and then him one by one separated. It's not what you want to have happen, but Mikey, Lazarek, they're in a nice position here, especially with the zone pulling and opening up in other direction. That's going to allow them more comfortability, more options about where they want to rotate to. similar to Podesai and Snazy. So, north side of the map, they're going to slowly take all that space, knowing that there should not be any teams positioned here at this stage in the game.
Yeah, the best positioning they could have in the lobby, and look at the setup. Podesai, all the heals he could possibly ask for, maxed on materials, the best spot in the zone. And I think this should be a top game for them, considering a lot of their top opposition have fallen already.
Yep. Back-to-back games where a window of opportunity has opened for a lot of these players to climb up the ranks, and this is going to be a tight leaderboard after week 3 for those teams that are at least maybe 40 through 50th would typically kind of go to Surge Week along with the rest of those teams. It's going to be very, very tight, very, very close, as Nebs is feeling that same pressure. If he can get out of this alive, he has 4 slurp juices. It's not going to take him long to get healthy in this situation, and that layer change was huge. If he would have stayed there, they would have continued to put that pressure. He would have been unable to pop the slurp juice, but because he changed layers, he went up just one different box. That's going to make sure Nebs is as healthy as can be for this next rotation.
Yeah, but going into the moving zones with only wood available, Jacob, is never the kind of spot you want to be in as a player. So vulnerable, so weak to the rest of the lobby. As good of a player as he is, with the mouse in hand, it's going to be a really, really tough end game for Nebs to really make anything happen. Synod and Irazumi sitting perched up above everybody else in the lobby, but they don't really have what it takes to hold on to height. The resources they have available just aren't good enough.
Right now, since they did pull zone, they're going to be one of the first teams that have a huge opportunity to take away that high ground and try to hold on to it. They're looking healthy up until this point. Fastroki and Kylie just trying to rotate. They're the farthest team out right now. They don't have very many teams in front of them, but the ones that do, they not only have high ground, but they have that Mammoth pistol, which drained Kylie's shields just like that. And it doesn't look like they have very many heals to get him back up to chip-top shape, so they're going to have to kind of think outside of the box. We know eventually a Siphon and a refresh is going to be in the back of their minds, but where are they going to be able to pick it up at? Everybody getting a far pull this time around. I think maybe 6 teams getting the front side of the zone. So this is where we're going to see a lot of players begin to rotate side by side with each other and making that decision. Do you fire the shots? Do you got to go unnoticed along with that player is going to be so crucial and impactful in order to keep you alive. And we're going to see it here right in front of us. Wishu and Steno just continue to rotate toward the outside of the zone. They want to go through unnoticed, but Podesai and Snazy, they're just going beeline straight towards the zone, and that's what's causing them to take so much damage. There's a lot of teams that are positioned that don't have to rotate just yet that have now made them a focus, including the ones right under Snazy, and that's why he's going up. This is a great layer change at this stage of the game, especially if it continues to go unnoticed. So punishing that zone for all those teams, especially because so many other teams are just set up perfectly to absolutely capitalize off of it. Snazy now just gonna have to run through. You see all these stairs being placed behind him, trying to block off his angles as he tops his way in. And this next zone transition is going to be so crucial to how the rest of this game plays out. You see Kylie and Fastroki up on second high, maybe looking up towards it to see who exactly is playing for it and what they can do. They're actually very low material. So look, yeah, they're going to look to try to drop down. They want to find a refresh elsewhere, and it's not going to come. Fastroki a bit confused. He can't even see who's actually taking him out, looking in all different directions. It's like he's fighting a ghost right now. And Kylie, with no materials left, really just has to hope and pray that something can fall into his path. But you can see just how tough it is. All the changes in elevation, Lucia dropping all the way down, and it's actually favorable for him. At first it felt like a bit of a mistake, and maybe now it will feel like a mistake, because he looks like he's going right back to the lobby. Both players down. That would have been a great chance to rotate with the kinetic ore if he was able to stay alive. That's neither here nor there. But it's Snazy's chance to sign. But he has one build, and you see Teeny, that was the player that just took down a couple of them. That's Joe Kloss as well. They have the high ground, and if the zone continues to pull in that direction, they can solidify it by connecting, but Kylie goes down. Slovade takes him out, and he gets granted almost every heal in the book. He starts off with the slurp juice. He has 2 med mist in his back pocket, but zone hasn't closed yet. He has to start making a way forward, or it's all for nothing.
Slovade creeping his way in. Asser isn't there. And all these materials now are going to be just enough to keep him alive.
Teeny just putting that pressure there. He's just looking for any opportunity with the Mammoth, but staggering himself to the backside so no sneak attacks come through. Joe Kloss is putting the pressure there with the Flapjack. Trulix, a solo, staggering himself outside of the zone. The Menmis, it's now or never. He's trying to out-heal anybody for those placement points, and already he's going to get 2 more for his efforts. Running out of that Menmis, it's has to think about where he's going to push, where he's going to get that siphon, and Vico and Pink might be the targets in his sight.
It's not been the kind of day they will be riding home and celebrating about. But if they can use this game to turn things around, it will be the best momentum boost for them. Struggling though, they can't really do much other than hit their shots now. No materials, and Teeny and Joe are not gonna let it happen. They drop down at the perfect time and pick up the win. An ever-present force throughout these games, and finally picking up a victory out to match it.
Yeah, you've seen them pick up huge eliminations in the distant third party, stealing away impactful points from around the lobby. And you can see from the moment that had that high ground, they did not let it out of their sights, and dropping down at the perfect moment, they realized it was a 2v2 situation. They had the jump on their opponent, and there goes the first knock on to Vico. And from there, it was easy as can be. They saw Pink, and they caught him out in the open to get that second elimination and the VR.
Yeah, Pink and Vico did incredibly well there under the circumstances, but just at the end, they didn't have enough to hold on and really make that final 2v2 something worthwhile, right? They couldn't build and protect their angles, nothing like that. It was all about Teeny and Joe dropping down at the perfect time. And a really nice win for them again. They've been a team that's been here. It's not like they've come from nowhere. They have been a part of all these games, and we've seen their journey throughout the day. But they finally pick up a win in a game where a lot of the people up at the top of the leaderboard didn't quite have the best games, Jacob.
Yep, that means that window of opportunity to jump up as many spots as you can is going to be there. And with the first game of the half done, I'm going to go throw it over to Zeke and the game to break down that leaderboard.
Listen, Vivid Taco, this one was a weird one, okay? It was just chaos from beginning to end. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some really cool highlight moments. There were some crazy clutch individual solo plays. But overall, this has got to be one of the more chaotic games I feel like I've seen in EU in a while.
Yeah, I mean, Lurgon was popping off with all that chaos we're talking about. Meanwhile, Joe and Teeny are kind of just riding it out on the high ground, like Jacob had mentioned there. Once they got a hold of that high ground, nobody could even come close to contesting it for them. I feel like every other game that we've seen today, we've seen these little contests go for the high ground. This was more like one of those week 1 style games where high ground was just able to ride it out and just build, those flats and those cones, and that was it.
Yeah, it's not even like Teeny and Joe had like all of the essential materials that you would necessarily want. I mean, they were running relatively low on builds there towards the very end. It's just that nobody else in the lobby has even close, like they don't even have a fraction of the builds necessary to try and begin even making that trek to tarp through into second height and then look up towards that ultimate high ground layer. I think that the idea there for Vico and Pink, they were trying to utilize as many of those builds on the bottom to kind of provide as much coverage for as long as possible, but eventually it just runs out, and then you have to go for the challenge, and it's a hard one to win from that position.
Yeah, very, very tough. Let's take a look at our leaderboard. I want to see how the standings are shaping up. Remember, we only have 2 more games to go, and then we're divvying out some series points. Malabuka and Thomas. Thomas decided I'm a lone gunman. I have a mammoth pistol, you say, is basically sort of like a sniper in hand. I'll just chain together a handful of eliminations. So Viv, just stay up at the top. Why not?
Oh yeah, well, why not just hit shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot with the new mammoth pistol that does big damage when you do manage to land those shots. I mean, just incredible efforts out of this duo here, and it's one of the ones where it's just like, yeah, they didn't necessarily make it into the end game, but the shots were being landed and the eliminations came out. I mean, I have no idea what I'm even watching. It's like his own highlight reel.
Thomas was doing such a great job, though, at disorienting so many other duos in the lobby, teams that were trying to establish some form of mid-ground control and just positional control. But when you have these shots just breaking through from directions that you're not anticipating, and from a solo player at that, sure, Thomas winds up getting pincered at the very end there, but he still managed to basically keep himself in a vying position to where they can maintain their top placement right now in the leaderboard. But there's a reason why Thomas is looked at as one of the best snipers in EU, and he doesn't need the heavy sniper rifle to do it. A Mammoth pistol apparently is just going to be the same exact thing for him.
Just disgusting coming out from Thomas HD. And again, this is kind of 2 rough games back to back. Remember, they won the first 2 games. Kind of had 2 subpar games, have had some difficulties, but with 2 games left to go, I'm sure they can look to pick up some steam and close out strong. I did want to highlight this duo that just jumped up into second place there, Vask and Older. Suddenly, they're looking to contest. They're trying to say, Malibuca Thomas, look, we get it, you guys are nuts, but we would like a first place finish if possible.
Yeah, very consistent team, actually. 3 top 10s for them already. That game was actually going to be their worst placing one so far with a 16th. So hopefully they can kind of return to form in game number 5. And I think they could definitely contest them in first place if Thomas and Malibuca have a tough rotation like they did in this one.
I think a lot of it also just boiled down to the fact that these were some pretty brutal moving zones. The way that it started to pull back over shattered slabs, it can be very difficult to actually micromanage that shift in layers, and especially when a lot of it's just from the natural terrain that Shattered Slabs has to offer. But so many of these teams just doing everything in their power to try and make sure they don't get caught up in somebody else's box.
Yeah, again, this no mobility meta, it is brutal, right? And for some of these duos, sometimes things go their way. They get that zone pop close by, they think it's fine. Other times, they have to travel very far distances across basically the entire lobby and hope that they can make it out. Now, I did want to look at the kind of overall damage we've seen by the numbers here in the competition so far. So we're going to highlight kind of a total number of damage dealt just in the 4 games we've seen. Better and Darm, 8,000 damage. You know what's crazy is I would have expected Thomas just to be in first place, right? You put a Mammoth in his hand and say, I don't know, man, just send some shots out, pick up some eliminations. But looks like for Better and Darm, they're the ones pumping out the most damage so far.
Yeah, this is games 1 through 3. So after we calculate in and include game number 4 right there, I'm sure Thomas will definitely bump up, but I'm happy to see Snazy and Podesai right there in second place, because they have had a very consistent day as well. Every single one of their finishes has been top 15, and they're in 4th place right now. And I love the way that they position themselves in some of these end games, including that game right there. Unfortunate that those moving zones pulled completely opposite to them, or I guarantee we would have saw a victory route out of them as well.
But again, when you're seeing such a substantial difference between first and second place as far as damage output overall, you almost have to wonder for Better and Darm if part of the issue might actually be their time to elimination. Some of these engagements they're taking might be going on for just a little bit too long to where they're having to compromise their rotational capabilities. And if they're not able to find that ideal positioning, you can have plenty of Storm Surge damage, but it's not going to really do you much good if you're not able to find that ideal spot to sit in to actually utilize it later on.
And I love that point, right? How many of these fights have we seen go like 30 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes in the Storm of as well? Like, we needed to start going in, getting these eliminations, and getting out, right? Because remember, with no mobility, those even 30 seconds is so valuable to a duo. But we got to focus back up on the competition. Only 2 more games to go, so let's send it on over to our casters for the next one.
Game 5 is right here, right before us. And this is where a lot of those teams, if you're lower on that leaderboard and you had a bad week number 1, there is no time to waste. You might have to change up your game plan and get a little bit aggressive to pick up those points.
Yeah, drastic times call for the drastic measures, Jacob. Of course, it's the age-old story. This is a season where you can't rely on a Surgic to save you. Surgic, what's that? No, none of that. Series points is the way. You have to have top performances in these round 3s. And for the teams that weren't here last week, you cannot let these 2 games just pass you by. You have to change your destiny. You have to change your fate. And that change starts now.
Yeah, and especially for the early front runners on the day from games 1 through 3, going down early, hitting some speed bumps in the road. Those are opportunities, and vital opportunities at that you need to be able to take advantage of as a team, because you don't want to sit back, look at a low point game from one of our top leaders and realize you also had one of those low point games. So with game 5 and game number 6 even around the corner, it is a must for these teams to really pick up the pace. Are there any individuals that you're looking at that need to have a big game 5?
I got my eyes on all the individuals. Let's jump right into game 5.
Game 5 right here. You're seeing an west to east bus path. A little bit south at that tail end, helping some of those teams get to their drop spot that much faster. But there goes Thomas and Malibuca. Heine and Mygoot yet again right out of the gates, and they get a little bit of a split. Malibuca didn't even get a gun. Thomas, he's trying to back up and hold his position because you cannot let that slurp truck go for free either. Continues to just hold on to his position, his height, while Malibuca's just hunting, but he has to go far to get any bit of weapon, which means they have to disengage. That slurp truck has gone on over. Now Thomas has to be on the hunt for shields of his own, especially if they're looking to take this fight, because Heine is stepping up to the plate. He's ready to hit it out of the park if you give him an opportunity.
Yeah, they are hunting, but that might just leave a window, a gap for Malibuca to sneak in, and I think they were a bit cautious of it, so yeah, they won't continue to just run it down mid at Thomas. But it's interesting, right? It's rare that you see this fight sort of divulge into a disengage like this, especially with Malibuca and Thomas, right? They're rarely ever the guys to disengage in such a manner.
That's got to be a different boost of confidence on the other side. Knowing, hey, you just backed off one of the best teams in the lobby, trying to build up that confidence, but you don't want to get too greedy. Simply don't want to bite off more than you can chew, especially going up against a team like this, and that's why you're seeing the continuous disengage. Nobody really taking the bull by the horns to try to fight this right out of the gates, especially with third parties looming around every other direction.
Shaykos, we've not heard or seen that much from today. Him and Yusa have been a bit more quiet than what we typically would expect from them. But there are still 2 more games to try and turn that around.
Shots in the distance as well. User and Shaykos have a decent footing here on the map, but when it comes to heals and getting themselves up into fighting shape, they need a little bit more. But luckily for them, that team that was just right around them began to disengage. Moneymaker as well, who is a solo. This is going to be a big game for some of these teams to try to put up as many points as possible. Doesn't matter how low you are on the leaderboard. Each position up that leaderboard grants you more and more series points added to your week 1 total. You add it to your week 3 total, and our top 50 teams in series points reach the grand finals.
Ariane and Kaden. I feel like we always see them in these kind of spots, right, where they're just targeting a player and really just sort of hunting someone down. And you sort of look at it and you go, okay, that's nice, right? You guys have started off well, kicking off, and then it never turns into much more than that.
One fight to the next, though. There's no more waiting around. Groves, Clownski towards the bottom. Uguay with a little bit of height. It's basically their choice if they want to continue to try to contest this. Hold them out of zone. First shot's going to be fired off. Gets denied entry. Piece Control cannot go over just yet. Uguay continues to back up. Clownski and Grohl is hot on the chase. They don't want to let him go for free. Even have that potential third party closing in on the distance. Landing some shots. Uguay is going to go down, and you could see them immediately disengage as this fight ended. They just wanted damage. They didn't want to fight. They just wanted Storm Surge damage, and they're well on their way.
Thomas actually has more individual eliminations in FNCS Grand Finals than any other EU player. Absolutely astonishing. from Thomas HD. I spoke to him recently, and I was saying to him, as much as he's not won that all-elusive FNCS, like, when you look at his consistency in competitive Fortnite history, there's nobody in EU that comes close to. It's ridiculous. He is literally probably the only player that you could argue has been a top 10 player in every year of EU competitive Fortnite.
That's impressive.
You look at 2019, he was sort of in and around that area. Then after that, 2020, 21, 22, 23, it's been unprecedented level of consistency from him.
It's primarily impressive due to how much the meta actually changes season after season. The POIs change season after season, chapter after chapter. It's almost like you have to relearn crucial aspects of the game. So being able to stay on top for so long, just like you said, not many say they can do the same. I showed them in their laughing. Their new drop spot here is going to be, I wouldn't say contested out of the gates, but contested for now by Merstash and Tayson. And there's no hiding because their laughing has the key, so they're always going to know where he's positioned at. As Merstash begins to put down the early damage onto the build, just trying to break through. And there goes a huge shot from the side. Hide on Bush with a sneak attack to land 140 damage on Show Them. Give him the advantage here in this fight.
Yeah, this is nice to begin things. But whoa! Hide on Bush! Oh my goodness! Nah. Oh man, I praise this guy too much, and so I don't want people to go 11's glazing again, but are you kidding me? What have we just seen?
Nah, I think anybody's a fan of a play like this. He turned.
I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? They've not been having the best day. Hide on Bush and Mustache. It's actually been a pretty torrid day by their standards. They've not been getting along. They've been arguing, Jacob. In fact, so much so, they literally played a couple games with like just no comms. They've just both were muted up, not even talking to each other, just playing. That's how bad it was getting today.
Hopefully in the second half, or last two games, they can make up for it. In my head, I'm thinking, you know, what duo, what couple doesn't face adversity within their own team? They fix it. They become stronger at the end. Just in a weekly finals, that's where it becomes a little question. See Thomas just trying to sneak his way in. Heine's already down. This is a fight right out of the gates. I don't know if it counts as off of drop, but there you go. Thomas and Malabuka looking like they already have one elimination. Lucy and Steno take away the other, so split the points between the two. And it looks like they're doing the same with the loot. Ooh. That's exactly what I was waiting for, that far pull here to the west side of the zone. Get a different view of that same fight. Just gets the piece instantly, and that's the peak. You just don't peek Thomas. I feel like I need to write that down as rule number one. Don't peek Thomas in a box fight. Doesn't matter if he has piece control or not. He's just going to pack the punch.
I think that's a pretty decent rule. Don't peek Thomas. Probably going to be safe more times than not, right?
Sure hope so. Just one ramp really separating these two teams, but they're going to rift out. Try to find some safety elsewhere. It's just, are they going to follow, or are they just going to zone? Quickly answer. I think they were probably thinking in their head to try to follow, get as close as you can. But shots coming in from both MK Alphas and the Mammoth pistol. That's a decision you're going to regret for a little bit until you heal up at the very minimum as Podesai and Snazy. Kind of what we see them do here, as long as the zone is towards the Citadel. It's already elevated high up off the ground naturally, and then if you build on top of it, you're going to get a great line of sight to try to get Surge. But an interesting loadout from Podesai, no shotgun. From one side of the map from the other. From castles to jungles. From Savage and Vidil. Just toying outside of the zone for now. Savage just getting that much more damage for his Storm Surge totaled, but Vidil just oversteps his boundaries. Lucy's able to get the knock, but it's from the distance. You can see them trying to close in on that distance. You see it in the minimap as well. Mr. Savage is trying to time this right. He's trying to go for the revive. Does he get it off is the question, especially with shots coming in from Steno. He's going to stop that one coming through and gets the cleanup onto Vidil.
Steno and Lush have not been the easiest team to come up against in these games so far, and I don't often associate real brute forcing, high-level fighting with these two, but maybe I should, because that's what they've been showcasing today. And you can see with this fight taking place, Hyde on Bush and Mustachio are just waiting on the outside for it to conclude before jumping in. And you might see that there. Yeah, I think Steno just spotted one of them now. And so both players will slow down a bit as Mr. Savage continues to try and make his great escape.
At least 3 teams directly in the fight. Make it 4 as they finally enter the fray. A solo and another duo towards the outskirts. Hearing all this action, they want a piece of that pie. Mustache not dropping down immediately. Savage is out. Vico is out. Bacon is gone as well. Luckily for Mustache, he got tagged up. The slurp juice is popping. So he's immediately able to get up to tip-top shape. This is where with the fight breaking down, it's over just as quick as it started. In a lot of these, you're seeing a lot of these players disengage. They don't want to continue to fight, especially while having to rotate to the next zone. For him, he has the exotic slap splashes. Get 30 HP instead of 15. Longer duration with your tactical sprint. You see he's on the hunt right now. It looks like he was going back for the reboot, but Shaco's going to beat him there. So we have a 1v1 with so much on the line other than just the elimination points, but a chance to get your teammate back into the game. And just like that, there's another team rotating from the zone and a chance for them to try to pick up something here, at least some shots when it comes to Surge, but that third party is going to be detrimental to one of these players if they do land a shot here. So he's just getting chased around. Shaco's just doing all that he can just to survive this. Even with a third party coming in, that's Thomas and Malabuka of all teams. I don't know if they know it was him, but you notice as soon as they started pushing up, both of those players disengage. Older's gonna feel that one in the morning as Thomas continues his domination with the Mammoth Pistol and the distance. I thought he was at least gonna go for the attempt there.
I just want more Thomas Mammoth highlights. That's all I want. You know what I mean? Look, I don't want many things in life. I don't really complain much, but if I can, you know, get some more Thomas Mammoth highlights, I'll shut up for a long time if you want me to.
Nah. Keep it going, keep it going. Great find on the Medmis. They still got some traveling to go before they find that safety net into the zone. They're going to be one of the last teams there as well, and I think they have the experience to know what is waiting for them on the other side. Reboot coming off. You see the information being gathered at the top of Rift Island. Plenty of heals on the side of Marco and Klinberg. There's one team that's positioned right below him, directly on Rift Island. One more right below them on the mountain below Rift Island, who's trying to travel closer and closer to the center zone. And a couple players towards the outskirts sprinkled around, which could be what he's looking for right now. With a Mammoth Pistol, this amount of high ground, a great opportunity to just get somebody when they least expect it.
I don't think anybody expects it. The Mammoth Pistols. Unbelievable. But look, it wouldn't be a mid-game without having our lovely friend Miniminer dropping us with some updates. Mini, what's going on?
Well, Evan, Snazy and Podesai, they've been doing very good so far. They're 4th place on the leaderboard, but I feel like we haven't seen too much from them. Let's break down their off-spawn strategy and how they're maximizing the loot that they can get from the Citadel. We can see here Podesai getting as much metal as possible, spoiling the tea party, breaking every single plate and cutlery on the table, just trying to maximize all of the metal that he can get from this drop spot. Meanwhile, they also have a loot or a vault nearby that they can loot from, so Snazy and Podesai get a little bit of that loot as well, and also they are able to capture a flag at their POI. So these guys are not short on loot at all. That's why we're seeing them keeping up this consistency, and let's see if they can continue it here in Game 5.
And I think a big thing is just they do that also quickly, and then they're setting up in positions, right, to go out there, get their surge dealt with. And that can sometimes be the key. Too many times I've seen teams in positions where they're just overlooting, spending way too much time, doing it too slowly, not efficient in their pathing, and it really costs you that extra couple of minutes you lose out on. So
and one thing I know that wasn't hit on is the capture point and the vault combined gave them more than enough gold to be very picky, very choosy with their augments and how they want to line up all 4 of those. They can set themselves up. It would be maybe a mammoth destruction. They can specialize in the ARs. They can even reload their shotgun just a bit quicker, but Skvi's gonna go and get tagged up. Fastroki's by himself. He realized there's another player there, so this is where he's immediately gonna try to disengage, even though he did deal a good amount of damage as the damage pours right back at him. He's just trying to disengage and escape. He has 3 slurp juices. He could definitely get himself into the zone as well. You see how close it is, especially if it does begin to open. A lot of these white heals that he's finding on the ground from med mists and so on and so forth is going to allow him to stagger himself even more. Depending on how much damage he's taken up to this point, I don't think Storm Sickness will be that much of a worry.
you can see him just trying to wrap his way into the safe zone. Hellfire. Running behind. Oh, yeah. Why am I surprised anymore? Why am I surprised? The Mammoth Pistol putting in work. And Hellfire with some crisp, clean locks. Hitting heads. That's tough.
It's definitely one of those things, and you can see him combining that Mammoth Pistol with the augments to give him even more damage. And you can see in games 1 to 3, there were more elims with a Mammoth Pistol than ARs.
I wonder why.
I don't think it takes a magic 8-ball to see that one. Players on the ground, you one-shot them. Players standing up, you one-shot them. You could double pump with the Sharp Tooth. And the distance and hip fire, it's just one of those weapons. It's almost a must-have. And you could see Thomas on the receiving end of some shots, trying to fly through with that rift. And you can see how it's a huge double-edged sword for these teams.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things that sometimes gets overlooked, right, is that when you are gliding as a duo, a lot of the time the first player is fine, right? The first player, whoever's leading, is cool because people aren't really expecting them. People aren't reacting in time. It's the second player, the person that's following. You have to be very conscious about how you're going to glide through and how you're going to survive, because at that point, everybody now is aware of you and is watching, and in that case, Thomas gets caught out because of it. Always much harder to be that second player. Have to be even more aware.
Hopefully that's a bit of a freedom on Malibuka's side to play exactly how he wants. As Setting and Cammy slide in, pick up another elimination. See them choosing what loot am I going to bring along with me on this next adventure into the center of zone.
Also
right on top. Got to be careful. Most of the teams are already in zone, but Fastroki, a solo with a duo right next to him, has to be careful. And you can see all the way westward of Shattered Slab, there's a whole fight breaking down. And both of those teams, no matter who wins that fight, need to be careful, because by the time it's over, chances are everybody else is already going to be in zone.
Yeah, another Shattered Slab zone. Somebody's, you know, clearly in the favor of the zone gods right now. But the big thing is as we saw with last game, those changes in elevation as you go through Shattered, if the moving zones do pull there, can be very, very tough to deal with. You have to think ahead. You have to plan ahead. Hide on Bush and Mustache going to be playing the same game as a duo. Weren't doing that last time round, and so hopefully now a change in their fortunes as they look to climb up the standings.
The chance for a change in so many every player's fortune in this lobby, because we saw there a moment ago, the leaderboard flashed up. Top 3 teams are down and out again in our 5th game on the day, which opens up an opportunity for anybody, any one of these teams, even Snazy and Podesai here, to try to climb up that leaderboard. Try to position themselves at the top. Nice shots off into the distance. They pick up that elimination. Unable to really get all that loot for their efforts, but at least one less player in the lobby they have to worry about. They spot out Corny, his teammate, on the other side. They know he's a solo, and that's the interesting thing. As long as they have that information, they don't have to act on it now. They can wait until zones begin to rotate and spot him out on rotation.
Strokey. It's going to be a tough battle. Yeah, he's above on Surge, but he doesn't have a teammate, and he has some very aggressive players looking at him from all sides, all angles. I'm surprised he's even stayed alive this long. Dodging bullets, sliding through edits, up, down, over, under. How is he surviving? He might even get a live out of this. For Strokey, how have you managed to survive that? He eventually gets taken out, but for Strokey, putting on a show before he went down. What a player.
We're going to see that on social media probably a few times throughout the weekend, but take note of this. I talked about the top 3 teams being down. You include Fastrokey, that's 4 of the top 5 teams are down, and then you continue to look down that leaderboard. Out of the top 7, there's only one team alive. It's Snazy and Podesai, and this is the game that can really climb them to the top of the leaderboards and give them momentum going into our 6th and final game. They could be the team to take it all, when I think a lot of people were looking at some other names in this lobby, and that's why I love Fortnite for that reason. When you least expect, a lot of these players that are going under the radar become the top dogs.
This is their chance. This is their moment. The others have allowed them to have this opportunity. No one to blame but themselves. They want to force their way up. Seti and Cammy are always going to be a presence in these kind of games, and the setup looks really nice for them. The zone pull isn't too bad. And you know exactly what they want to try and do. Stick to those higher layers. Look to see if they can disrupt height a bit. If it's there to be taken, they will definitely take it. But more often than not, we see them moving through, claiming those low ground layers and just absolutely bullying enemy solos that are scuffed down there. Vortex, Belusi, they're trying to cause problems for themselves, and that's exactly what they'll do. Podesai and Snazy having to re-establish their height fortress, getting chopped out for a moment.
They even saved some builds from crashing and falling down to the low ground when it all got chopped. Those are huge, but 255 above the damage threshold. He stays, going out, going wide, trying to go to the front side. Merstache, he's trying to go in. Chicho goes down. Trulix true to follow, and that's Hide on Bush and Merstache with a huge late game refresh and elimination. They quickly disengage out of the box, right into another though. Merstache taking so much damage trying to survive. Him and his teammate were momentarily separated before they find themselves reunited in the same box once more.
This could be the game where we show exactly who they are. These guys have been FNCS champions this year. They are no slouches at all. Vortex and Belusi, we saw them much higher up a couple moments ago, but things have quickly taken a turn. And so it's all up to Vortex now as a solo to try and make some sort of masterclass happen.
He does have some decent loot to make it a possibility. Combine that with 5 eliminations so far. They've already got the ball rolling. You see him being very, very careful not to forget any corner to check. Even Trippin trying to break down height. Revsguard going into the zone, trying to pick up as many of those refreshed mats as possible. See him even splitting, giving them all over to Trippin. He's going to be the IGL, the leader, the guy that's tunneling and tarping them way in towards zone. Sentinel and Lucian looking towards the backside. They found one onto Ronnie. That gives them 2 more points to their total. Slowly but surely, this team is climbing up that leaderboard.
And this is a different kind of game for Cammy. He has to do it all alone, and he's going to do his best at it. You can see the opportunities are there for him to add points to the tally, and he knows how to take them. Can't finish off anything just yet. He knows he can't be overly passive in this game if he wants to survive. Snazy, Podesai up in the sky, and they're holding on good.
Great use of the glider redeployed by Cammy. to go ahead and get in zone as fast as possible. Let it Slurp Juice do a lot of the work to try to get an HP up. He gets the piece control in the edit, but misses the crucial shot. But the second Slurp Juice is there. No worries for Cammy as he continues to try to go in zone. Side by Lushi, catches him slipping, takes him out, and gets a nice set of refresh mats. It's not much, but at least it's something to work with for Cammy.
The perfect opportunity for him to stay in this game. Steno's going to be wondering what on earth has just happened. Cammy now, he's going for the other duo partner. He's not going to let them survive. More piece control from him, trying to be attempted, but he'll just rely on the aim, rely on the AR, and it will pay off.
And he gets the men miss. He's keeping himself alive. I talked about Snazy and Podesai's chance being one of the only teams in the top 5. Well, Cammy and Seti are the second team in the top 10 trying to take this opportunity by storm, but they go down. 2v2 situation, though. Snazy and Podesai, they have the high ground. They cannot be shot out by now, so the pressure is there from the Flapjack. On the low, though, Nebs, Hellfire, trying to fire back. You see the Mammoth pistol in hand, trying to break through the builds and drop them into the palm of their hands, but this one is going to go down to who is daring enough to try to make the play, and it's Snazzy first. Snazzy goes down. He takes down Nebs. 2v1 situation here as the heal off is going to begin. Podesai trusting in his teammate to do all the work, and he gets him down low. Hellfire gets taken down by Podesai and Snazy.
Snazy and Podesai, they made it close in the end. When Snazy dropped down there, I was thinking, oh my goodness, is this going to pay off? But it did in the end. Hellfire and Nebs did a brilliant job to make it as close as it was, because those guys were big chilling for a large part of those moving zones. And still though, at every given opportunity to try and take somebody out, they took it and took it well. That falling shot, the drop shot there, not something you see often. But when it comes off, it is so clean, and he almost got both of them, to be fair. But it was Hellfire who was able to pick him up before Podesai closed things out. A nice game for the Frenchies there, Jacob, and one that I'm sure will be very, very fruitful for them in their pursuit of first place.
No, it definitely is. And the biggest thing to note is he stopped his own heal up to make sure to take down Hellfire before the Siphon actually came in. He is making sure to stretch his limits. He's using everything he learned in Fortnite up until this point. And I said it, first was down, second is down. 2 teams in the top 10 overall late into the game were the only 2 teams alive. And you best believe that leaderboard is in shambles going into our last and final game. I'm throwing it over to Zeke and our analyst to break it all down.
Thank you guys so much. Only a single game left to go here in EU. And man, it has been a wild one to say the very least. Once again, our teams in first and second place have gone down. This means everyone else can try and make plays, can try and catch up. Remember, after 6 games on the day, wherever a duo places, they're looking to put series points on the series point leaderboard. Snazy and Podesai that get themselves the victory royale. We've seen them kind of in that top 10 situation several times today, but finally, Vivid, they put all the pieces together and they get themselves the win.
They've been one of the most consistent teams on the day for sure. They haven't placed out of the top 15 yet today, and I just mentioned it last game. I like the way that they are positioning in the end games. It seems like they always have the positional advantage over the rest of the lobby. They've just been waiting for the zone to pull their way, and finally in game number 5 it does, and they take full advantage of it by building up, making sure they have the higher ground, and it was just played so perfectly. Even Snazy right there dropping down, playing the mid ground for a split second in order to get that refresh, so that way they could continue to build out. And then the ending, closing movements were just way too clean. And this falling shot right into the water, being aware of that, so smart.
It's just the comms and the coordination between these two, because when Snazy goes for that initial drop shot as well, you have to keep in mind he's doing that with full trust into Podesai to actually have the backup pieces necessary to properly pressure from 2 separate angles. And it's definitely not an easy feat to try and control the lobby as well as these two have done. And not just this endgame instance that happened to work out for Victory Royale for them, but even some of our earlier matches, we've seen them time and time again at least looking to try and challenge for the high ground whenever they're actually at that late game opportunity.
Momentum, they have it. Can they do it once more? Well, we'll find out in just a moment. First, let's take a look at the standings. A single game left to go here in EU. What does this all mean? How does it all unfold? For the first time today, Malabuk and Thomas HD finally get dethroned. They've been in that number 1 spot for 5 games. Well, technically, I guess 4. Now on game 5, though, at the conclusion, Snazy and Podesai say, you know what? we are kings. Look at us. But with duos like Seti and Cammy, and now someone like Steno and Lucy there in 4th place, this could still be anyone's game, Vivid.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at Seti and Cammy because they were placing so high so consistently throughout the day, and after game number 4, they slipped down to that 9th place. But that solo clutch out of Cammy was so crucial, bumps them back up into the top 3. And just real quick, on the right side over there, that Storm Surge damage, they went into the 7th zone with like 1,200 above and without not even having an elimination yet. Like, we talk about them time and time again, and when it comes to the Storm Surge, they can very easily make it to the end game just every single game because they are just a step ahead in that category.
Yeah, and you can tell that the cogs are always turning here because even one of the clutch plays that Cammy had for his solo clutch opportunity was chopping out a duo's box and forcing that pair to be isolated so that he was even in a position to find a nice refresh. He gets some Siphon going for himself and a couple of elims to boot. And it's not easy when you're in that solo side situation. You see a lot of times, you'll see teams when they're left with that solo player just trying to play full backside of zone, trying not to put themselves into a position where they can become the target focus of the lobby. But Cammy just didn't care. He was ready to get active, and he did a phenomenal job at clutching up some of those points for the leaderboard position.
And like, how many duos in that same position would just crumble, right? They'd be like, I'm left alone, I have one elim, maybe they are eliminated like 15th, right? For Cammy to make it all the way to top 5, remember, there's points for eliminations, there's points for placement, so he played it so well, constantly teetering on that line, so well executed from him. And another duo, Nebs and Hellfire, coming in second after that game. This is a duo we've seen in the past do very well, and though they've been relatively quiet on the day, they finally make it in that top 2, trying to make a play happen, trying to fight for the victory royale. But I mean, just look at the number of eliminations. Finally, they're trying to just bring something online for this final game.
And I feel like they've had some solid mid games throughout the day. I keep seeing some mammoth pistol highlights out of this duo, right? So the Storm Surge has always been there for this duo. It's just all about finalizing those closing moments and actually make it into the end game. And when they did, popping off with 10 eliminations, I mean, that's going to be a huge game for them leading into the last one.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's just going to be about consistency at this point, and some of these teams that didn't necessarily get the strongest start on the day in our first 3 games, well, you can always close out strong, and I think Nebs and Hellfire have definitely put themselves in a position where they could certainly look to challenge for top 5 in the leaderboards.
I like that, but this does make me think about that 20, right? The 11th or 20th places. Just really quickly, let's just touch on this. Let's see which duos are currently sitting in that little margin, right? Take a look. This is our top 10. We'll flip on over to our 20th as well, because again, we're looking to place as high as we can after the day is done. 14th place, a duo like Janice and Reason, right? Take a look at 17th place, Nebs and Hellfire, up 20 places. Vivid, they could do it again. It could happen.
Could do it again. But it's crazy, right? Like, look at this leaderboard. There's only 14-point difference between 20th and 11th. So close.
It is way too close. It is way too close with only this here, the final game in EU. One last ride, one last time. Casters, over to you.
This is it, the last ride, the final go-around for a lot of these teams, and you got to imagine that top side of the leaderboard is stacked. It's worth fighting for teams that didn't have that placement in week number 1. For some that have already achieved a top 5, and they're looking to kind of solidify their spot in grand finals with this week here.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say these guys have had a feel for the games today. You've had so many chances to have an understanding going into this last game. You know, there aren't any excuses that you have to make this one count.
Yeah, it's all or nothing in this last and final moments. And we're going to see a lot of teams change up their game plan from very, very early on. We're going to see a lot of aggression right out of the gates into maybe a slow and style game plan into those final moments to take it all. So everybody needs to scavenge around. You're going to see some players caught out of position and players taking advantage. But the last game of the day starts right now.
We've had 5 games that have built up to this moment. A last opportunity for many of these teams. Some of these teams, there's a good chance, Jacob, we won't even see them again this season. with just how grueling and difficult it can be to even make it back to this stage. Of course, the hope is that we will see a lot of them get another chance at it in week number 3. But that all starts with their performance here in Game 6, and it all starts with these Osborne battles. Malibuka and Thomas up against Mygroot and Heine. Both teams trying to land on any sort of weapons they can find and catch another player out if possible.
That's a good find from Thomas. Even the big bush bomb can be used to try to cloud his position. Immediately it goes out. You see them fighting for the slurp chuck, which they're going to get. Heine gets the best end of it all. 200 HP and shield, which vanishes in the blink of an eye. Thomas continues to put out damage. Malibuka is there. They're trading. The bait and switch goes through, and they come out on top yet again. Thomas and Malibuka are ready to take that first place position back.
I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm seeing. A quick, clean Osborne battle. And a chance for them to remind us of how they started the day. Of course, if you have tuned in late, those two won the first 2 games back to back, which is a big part of why they're where they are in the standings.
You see this?
Trouble in paradise.
That looks like somebody got taken down out of the sky. Maybe Comeback, Perhawa, maybe tagging him, not letting him even touch the ground. Podesai going for the reboot. They immediately beeline over. They want to take him down twice, 2 different times. That's 4 points on just Snazy alone, and that's putting a ton of pressure on Podesai. If they can even find him, though.
Yeah, they do have to find him. Snazy, you can see just crawling away. Hidden in that building. I'm sure they'll check it. Maybe not. Maybe they're just going to go right for the head, right for Podesai. Of course, suspicious of every corner, every angle. Not going to go to the extent to check every single building. Interesting.
Wow.
Wait, Comeback spinning the block. And he will find Snazy.
Good find right there. Wait, we didn't check the closed building. It's probably what he told himself. Let me just double back, check it one more time. And this is where they're just trying to take height. They spot out Podesai in the distance. Not a lot of ammo for that Flapjack to deal damage into the distance. But he's quickly going to pop that slap juice. Try to get unlimited stamina so he can close the distance onto Podesai. But it's basically a game of cat and mouse, hide and seek.
If I'm Podesai, I'm never going to stop running.
Got your shoes laced up tight.
Yeah, I think they know that as well. They've done enough damage though, right? They've completely derailed their gate. We've seen these guys comfortably land at the Citadel, loot up very quickly, very efficiently, you know, capture the flag, get the ball, you know, do all this, all that. And now, they gotta find a new way to play this game. And that's not what you want to be doing in game number 6. You want to already go with your established plan that's got you so far.
The last bullet out of the Flapjack started off with the Mammoth, and that's what you're seeing that stat about the eliminations with that Mammoth. It's much easier just to spray through your targets with the Slapjack and the MK Alpha and then kind of finish it off overall with the Mammoth, especially if a player is weak as they continue to loot up Frenzy. They're just pushing everybody that was contesting them early on. They're just pushing them out of Frenzy Field, making sure people know that is their POI to kind of hold down tough. And they started this game off in 3rd place, 180 points. They were 14 points shy of 2nd, so they have a gap to overcome. Slove and Asa immediately end that fight as soon as we tune in.
Let's get a replay of how exactly Asa was able to accumulate some of these limbs.
Good start for them. It's all about those series points here. Even if you realize like it's a 100-point deficit to try to take first, you want to gather as many as possible. The late Rift to try to get himself out of a tough spot. Volko's going to go down. You can see him going right back to the scene to try to get that loot. Third party coming in, Hellfire. Just taking so much damage, being backed up against the wall. Luckily for him, though, Nebs is right there, and they have the potential Rift as like a get-out-of-jail-free card trick underneath their sleeve.
Luca and Julian Con, we've not seen much of them, apart from them being on the receiving end of a lot of these fights where players are just sort of scattered in this area of the map.
It's like he's begging for somebody to spot him out, shoot in that direction. Maybe using it as a way to kind of figure out where his opponents are at. As we see back into Podesai. Last we saw him, he was disengaging so far out of the Citadel to try to stay alive, but it is eventuality coming into play that he needed to backtrack. He needs to go back if he wants to get Snazy's reboot card and work together as a duo. They have a 30-point lead to start this game, but with Thomas and Malabuka hot on your heels, that is not a 30-point feeling of comfortability that I would have at all.
Yeah, not at all. Especially with their propensity to often play towards the vault, towards the island, sorry. And just their raw ability, you know, at any given moment, these guys can set an elim record and win a game, right? So, always on the edge of your seat.
Those are the original Combat How, the original players that did take down Podesai's teammate. So they had the wherewithal to stay in the vicinity of the reboot card as soon as he went. Try to get it. You see them close in on the distance, but Podesai is too sneaky. He's just a little bit too quick. He was able to disengage, and depending on where the zone pulls, this side of the map might be one of the least congested, and there might be a high probability of that reboot card getting off yet again. He's already done it twice. Third time might be the charm.
This is not ideal at all. We're a couple minutes into the game. He's got barely any materials. No teammate. No surge. Bro's just existing right now.
At least he's still alive. At least he's still alive. At least he's existing on the map. That's one of the biggest things that you got to give him
He's swung away from the island, mate.
He could easily be watching in Legends Landing along with the rest of us if that one did go sideways, but knowing when and where to abandon your teammate is huge. It keeps you alive. It gets you that chance to go back for the reboot card. But what he does from there on out, because now not only do they know he's there, they know what direction that reboot is, so if they wanted to go push and try to take out Snazy for a third time, that is there, but they're laughing and show them. They're just going to continue to move in towards the zone. They got themselves a possibility at legendary loot thanks to that weapons cache.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. But will they get it for free? Of course, they're very aware that Vasquez is around the corner. He's dashed down in the field at the hands of Vidil after seeing him picking up Mr. Savage, so we'll see if Tayson can clutch up there. That 1v1 against Vidil.
He's just trying to get information. You see there, he's just trying to stretch, go one direction, figure if there's anybody positioned high up on Rumble Ruins, goes back. It's all about preparing for the next stage of the game. Similar here. Seti and Cammy, they boxed up on their own loot cache. Seti's there just being that IGL, being the brains of the operation, figuring out where that next rotation is. You see right now, they spotted out Seno and Lucy in the distance. They know they're there. They know Vico and Pink are there on the right. About what they do with this information. Seeing both sides of that action. Well, that's an easy way to get some height. Let's go to the restroom.
Almost lined up the headshot there. You never say no to those kind of moments. Thomas, though, seems to be the one on the receiving end of that aggression. In a bit of a different spot, though, and so gonna get some time to heal up. Ooh. Looting up. Malabuka cleans up on Trulex.
Just what Thomas has been doing almost all day long, and you see him going in using the big pots, able to save the slap splash leader, and there it goes. We literally, that happened Almost exactly, because we saw Thomas get tagged up as he was tagging up somebody else. And you're seeing that's basically the duality of the Mammoth. If you take too long to line up your own shot, you risk getting tagged up yourself. Excitement at its finest as they reach 200 points, but Thomas and Malabuka have been running wild in this game. We're going to throw it over to Miniminer to break down every stage of their game.
Yeah, of course. Let's take a little look at the race for first place right now. Thomas HD and Malabuka. Let's take a little look. Of course, we saw them winning off spawn, and let's have a look at their loot. Malabuka has that Breacher shotgun, which is going to be really useful when combined with Thomas HD with that Mammoth pistol. I've seen so many teams use them in conjunction with each other and finding great results. Podesai left as a solo, but does manage to get the reboot onto Snazy, so hopefully for them, they can maintain that top spot. And Seti and Kami, these guys are also in the race for the top spot as well. Kami does, of course, have that Soaring Sprint augment, which we saw him using that solo clutch, and some great loot to boot. I'm excited for this team as well.
I'm just excited for this game. The way he's breaking that one down, we're going to have what could be a photo finish at the end between our top 3 teams and anybody else willing to step up to the plate, because fourth going into this game, stand on Lushi, 170, only 10 points shy of that third place. You got Vask and Older, 164. So a lot of this leaderboard is stacked right close to another. So if we have a repeat of last game with our top teams going down, it definitely opens up the possibility of somebody else taking first as a fight for Rift Island breaks out. Pink takes the brunt of that damage using the Rift to get there. They're laughing and show them. They take both the actual capture point and the building on top of Rift Island. Great eye there from They're Laughing. Spot Pink trying to make that rotation late. Pounces on him to deal a good amount of damage. He needs to be able to solidify some time here for Show Them to try to heal. Did more than enough. Slurp Juice is now active. You see They're Laughing, popping the big pot as well. Pink peeking through the cone. Information in this fight is huge, especially with third parties coming in to try to cause even more chaos. That's a 15-point potential for this mid-map objective and all that loot that so many players are beginning to just scrounge for. They want to climb up the leaderboard as quick as possible in these final moments.
Yeah, that swing is huge. That's why they all desperately want it so bad, especially in this last game where having the opportunity for points is so vital.
It does get interesting. They did most of that capture. To be pushed off and back down now is not what you want to have happen, but Vico and Pink slowly but surely stepping forward, taking these pieces underneath their control. They're Laughing, doing a good job of backing them down, but a trade in shots. They're Laughing and Show Them are going to have the advantage for now as they continue to try to push down Vico and Pink back. Since it is about halfway captured at the very minimum, they need to continue to play hot potato.
Yeah, and these are the kind of moments where I want to see Vico show his worth and his value to the team, right? Create that opening, create that separation, hit that shot, get that piece control that really changes the tide of the fight. Right, that's where we see Vico excel. That's where he needs to develop his game. See him now trying to find a different angle. He needs to be careful because what's a player just in front of him? I don't even realize. I don't know if he noticed it. Other players looking to jump in and get involved in this fighting. Pink still the one though, trying to be the main aggressor here. If he's not careful, he might get caught out. Vico needs to make a play, and soon you'd think.
Soon is the right word. You see Zone pulling away from Rift Island. Some time is now going to be limited for these guys to try to continue to fight for it without taking too much damage to Storm. But look, so many teams on the outskirts of Rift Island, below Rift Island. If they hear too much damage and they look to feed of players going down, that could be an opportunity to the third party. But Pink is doing a good job of not backing down. Doesn't matter what angles they're being taken from Show Them, and They're Laughing, but they're just up and ready for the challenge. You can see them separate Vico on the low ground, Pink on the high ground. The multiple angles are just proven to be a little bit too tricky. They're Laughing and Show Them not finding their confidence just yet, but I might have spoke too soon as he tries to bull rush in. Pink sees that one coming, lands a great shot to trade off. There's a couple of missed opportunities from They're Laughing that is keeping him on the back foot.
The Pink doing an excellent job of displaying that even though he is the IGL, he does have ability in box fights to apply pressure and hold people off. giving room for Vico to try and make a play here, handling both players. We might just see it now. Vico trying to get in, taps on the wall, and they're instantly aware of it. But the zone coming in really does sort of change the dynamic of this fight when it comes to the timing.
And all those other teams, they say, hey, you're distracted. Let me use this launch pad. Let me just get out of here. You guys continue fighting for it, and I'll go my own merry way. But a lot of this mid-layer control still going over to their laughing and show them. Pink and Vico not wanting to give up the potential 15 points and all that loot. 155 on the side of their laughing and show them. So this could be a difference maker for their laughing and show them. That 15-point jump, that'll put them contention for that top 3. But Podesai goes down. Podesai's gone. Stacy's by himself. 11 HP. He's trying to stay alive, but that's Trexer on the other side. Hydro's already down, so it is a 1v1 situation. And they're one of the only teams in zone as well. With very few heals on the Snazzy, the timing is right for Trexer, but it does look like he has options. He can either play aggressive, try to back down Snazzy, or bait out that revive as the shots continue to get fired off and traded between the two. But Snazzy, he has no shields to regain here in this situation, so he has to be very, very careful how he approaches and continues to aggress on a Trexer.
This is so tough. That first place position slowly slipping out of his fingers, and he's desperately trying to keep the dream alive.
Now or never. 30-point lead. With the amount of destructible players in this lobby, I'm not sure it'll hold, but Snazzy goes down. I might not be sure, but they have their fingers crossed that 224 points. Hold on. They're going to be praying that everybody below them slowly but surely gets out of this lobby, because now it's Malibuca and Thomas for the taking.
Yeah, and I'll be real. It does not look like something they're going to be able to hold on to. 24 points in the rest of this game for Malibuca and Thomas. That's easy. That's barbecue chicken for these guys. You'd think, at least. 3 limbs already so far on the day. Any more to be had. Vico and Pink on the Rift Island. Vico doing so well to get in and hits a big shot. Pink goes down. And Vico was able to trade. So, again, I said I want to see him taking charge in those fights, and he did well to make sure he closed things out. Stayed cool and calm. And now with both of these guys up, all that loot, and a chance to continue to play this game out, things are looking on the up for these two.
That's a huge win. You get the points. Get like a free rotation towards the zone. See him kind of landing on the tail end, but Lucy and Steno go down as well. Top teams beginning to fall very, very early on. Those cascading placement points have not begun to set in just yet. Shimoki and Wheat feeling the pressure that they once put on somebody else. Only 40, but as I say, it's 3 below the damage threshold, so even though they find the elimination, their job of getting damage is not done just yet, even though they become the focus of the lobby and spend just enough resources to get in the zone. But now they have to worry about Surge and a teammate, a player trying to break into the box. Shimoki's gonna go down, Wheat's by himself, but they did just enough. They landed a good shot to get above the Storm Surge threshold, but the pressure, the focus of the lobby is too much. Shimoki and Wheat both go down.
You never want to be the lobby's enemy. Always a tough spot to be in when you have that much pressure coming in from so many different angles and a limited amount of builds.
This is where they take over this game. One of the two teams, you see the whole leaderboard getting wiped out. This is looking like an FNCS classic. Malibuca and Thomas toe-to-toe with Seti and Cammy in our final game. And to separate these two teams, to start the day off, it was only 14 points.
And look, game number 2, they were the final 2 teams in that game. They've literally gone head-to-head for a victory earlier today. And now it could be head-to-head for the victory overall at the end of the 6 games. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Both teams still have a long way to go. And there's still 46 other teams that stand in their way from being able to do that.
Teams right now, 295 right in front of them. You see Padil and Savage. They're not in zone just yet, as it is going to pull far away. Refsguard and Triprin, they have that slow side. but if they didn't get that zone pull, it's going to be hard for them to go up and over the mountain. Yep, they not only have to go up and over the mountain, they have to go across a little river to make it there. But Seti and Cammy, one of the front runners, 184 points. Depending on the eliminations between them and Malibuca and Thomas, like I said, it was only a 14-point differential between the two. So going down at any stage of this endgame is basically going to give up that position over to the next team. Pastroki and Kylie, they were another team at the top of the leaderboards.
Stroke only has 2 shots remaining in that, and he'll make it. Very, very worth his route. 187 to the dome. And that was crucial for them in terms of their Storm Surge position for the rest of this game.
They just immediately went up and boxed right next to him. Janice and Reason. They're just trying to reunite with each other. 99 above the damage threshold. You can see a lot of teams and players not having that same style of game, and it's not as easily able to gather that Storm Surge. The video takes down Julian. Him and Savage still doing a good job. Mixon takes so much damage. You see Blaha getting backed up as well. They have to reunite. Somebody has to hold the wall so that way they can heal. Thomas and Malibuca find another one on the Lazarek. They send him back to the lobby, and you see they go in for the loot. But if you look at the builds, if you look at the resource, that wasn't a ton that Thomas was able to gather.
Yeah, not at all. But he's going to have to make it work, Jacob. There's not much more he can do now. Tripping and refs up on height. It's in the name for refs. And even though we haven't seen it much today, there's no better time to show off your height prowess than here in this last game. First move in zone will pull towards the south over at Rumble. For Stroking Kylie, they don't really have many materials to sort of tarp and cover their way through. They need to find a good time and run their way in and get a refresh.
It's going to be difficult for a lot of players, especially in the zone. We're going down a mountain, up a couple hills. Brahawa is feeling a little bit of that pain. Quickly peeks on out, ready for any sort of escape plan. Seti and Cammy breaking through the walls. Talked about one shot Seti has in that Mammoth, looking to make it count, but he actually goes down, jumps into the wrong box. That was actually Thomas. Thomas takes down Seti. Cammy's now on the run, trying to stay alive. It's all up to him. So much pressure on one player's shoulders as now the loot and the change of the game has gone over. They have tied Snazy and Podesai up into this point at 224.
We said we wanted the head-to-head, and these guys are giving it to us. Entertainment on a whole different level. But for the rest of the players in this lobby, it's their job to stop them from stealing the show. Cammy goes down in the feed, and so that's going to be the end of the run for those 2 players. Badil falling as well, all things going on. So many players struggling to make it through these zones. A big shot from Kylie, but one that will not be reciprocated. Malibuca, Thomas, now it's their time to really run away with the show. They've already overtaken first place, and now they're just adding to that tally.
They're just trying to take over, prove their dominance here in this lobby. It's been a while since these guys have tasted first in a FNCS weekly finals lobby, and this is their chance to reclaim that throne, but they have so many players to go through. Trip and Refscar, they have the high ground. Malibuca, thinking outside of the box, ends up on Rift Island. Their chance to take over. Grohl's trying to make a cheeky play, going out of zone, but he gets spotted and taken down by Malibuca. Into the top 8 we go as Clownski. He's still trying to hide at that high ground outside of zone.
These guys, all they do is adapt and improvise. But now it's going to be a question of how do we get down from here? It was all good us coming up, but how do we move down? Thomas is falling, and Malibuca might just follow him. That might be his fate. He doesn't really have anything to stay alive for much longer. We're just going to fall, and eventually will fall to his demise. That's the end, but they are still an unbelievable team that has blessed us with their prowess today. Hellfire and Nebso very much trying to get vengeance. They came so close to a first place earlier, and now want to make up for it and claim the victory royale now.
That's a couple hundred series points up for grabs. They started the game in 17th place. Perchawa takes a huge shot, backed up. Kombic is there on the low ground as well. You have to be careful because he climbs up. Nebs, Hellfire, they have full control even though they're on the low ground, continuously putting pressure high up, trying to drop them into the palm of their hands. At a moment's notice, a well-placed Mammoth shot like that could just break all the builds, and this is exactly what Hellfire and the Nebs are looking for. They have so much materials. They can continue to spread out and build down low, but he's taking the game in his own hands. Kombic drops down. Huge shot onto Hellfire, but it's not going to be enough. Nebs with the other angle, and they make it a 2v1 situation as things slow down. Just a sliver of HP on Perhawa. He gets dropped down into the box and sent back to the lobby in our final game.